Perfect. I just want to make sure our live stream's working so we don't run into any issues like we have a couple weeks ago. Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting here at the Firehouse. Starting time at 6:30 and it's the 14th of May. We'll start off with a call to order, establishment of quorum, we get that, and the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Keep at
Alrighty. So, any amendments to the agenda?
No, but I think it's worth mentioning that the question and answer should be under new business, but to keep the folks from not waiting, we moved it up to under old business.
Yep, that's what I was just gonna note. I like that we did that, so they don't have to sit through all of our old business. Any public comment tonight? Okay, seeing no public comment, let's go right into our first agenda item in the night, question and answers with property reevaluation companies. Like Jerry said, this would normally be under new business, but we don't wanna make them sit through everything. So I figured I could invite, see how you folks want to do it. Would you rather ask all the representatives here questions at the same time, or kind of hear from each one first and then ask any follow-up questions you might have? Does anyone have any preference? No?
I don't have a preference.
Jerry, can we get those windows closed just so it doesn't pick up the background noise? Thank you so much. You just never know with microphones, they might pick up a car screaming across the road or something like that. Cool. Well, Jerry, do you want to introduce who we have here with us tonight, and we can let them speak one at a time?
Yes, over here to the left, we have Justin Poirier, right?
Yep.
From Dirigo Assessing.
This is David Ledoux, he's also from Dirigo Assessing.
Okay, and then here we have, I don't know, from KRT. Appraisal.
All right. And what'd you say your name was?
Rob Tozier, T-O-Z-I-E-R.
Well, Justin and David, I'll invite you guys to come up first and have a seat. Yep, absolutely. And let us know anything you might want us to know about this, and we can then open it up for any individual board member to ask some questions.
Do you want to start?
No, I'll let you.
Okay, so we're a small appraisal firm. We do we really only do like kind of one reval at a time. There's just 4 of us, and then any subcontractor staff that we might hire to do the pickup work in the field. But there's 4 main people. It's myself, David, Nicole Stenberg, and Kathy Malloy. We all, 3 of us come from Maine Revenue Services, as we mentioned in our appraisal. David was the director for you worked for the state for 40 years? 39 years. I worked there for 6 years, 3 as director. Nicole was a municipal services manager, so her job was to basically serve municipalities and however they want. We've done a few currently. We're doing their revaluation in Reedfield, Woolwich, Monroe. David previously did one in Winterport. We also serve as agents in several small communities as well. We do agent work like Donna does for you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I'm not sure exactly what it is that I can help answer any questions that you'd like to have.
Alrighty, thank you. Do any of you have any questions about the process, or any questions based off anything that they just said, or anything else that you'd like to ask? Oh, am I not on?
No.
Oh boy. Heather, no questions?
No, I do. I was
Oh.
trying to not always go first.
That's
was
no,
trying to be respectful.
we would like to. I'd defer to your questions because they're always good. So
So So when we're talking about the tax year, I see, we're talking about April tax year for 2027, correct? That's what, I mean, right, because nobody said that they could get it done by 2026. And so, this is sort of a question for you, maybe for Donna. When I was reading through one or both of the packets, I saw like a completion of August 13th or something like that. And I'm just wondering when our bills go out, that if the reval would hit the bills for the 2027
It would
tax
be-
bill.
It would be as of April 1st of '27.
Okay,
It would be later than we usually commit, but not by much. We're also talking about changing to a fiscal year, so it would fall in line. That would kind of be a normal commitment time for a fiscal year. But yes, it would be as of April 1st of '27.
okay. And you're comfortable with that, knowing that we would be looking to do that? You're comfortable with a completion date in order to make that happen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me jump in real quick. In an effort to be completely fair, maybe we should back up a little bit and let Rob introduce himself as well, and so we can pose the questions at the same time and let them each answer.
That's completely.
We don't want you to get all the questions and then Rob be studying in the back.
I started taking notes.
So if you don't mind, just scooting to the side, and we'll maybe bring another microphone over for Rob too, so we can.
Or you can just sit at
Or
that
you can
table.
sit wherever you'd like there. So.
Donna, you can come up too. Is
Oh, I'm
that?
good.
Yeah, if we're gonna have questions for Donna too, just so people can hear the answers, it might be best to just,
Sorry, I just.
Deb and I will just yell, because we'll share a microphone here, so.
The assessing community is small, so we all know each
Yeah,
Yeah.
other
we do.
outside of this, so
Yeah.
it's, you know, so we're happy to do that. I think, right, Rob, like, we're all
Yeah.
friends here, so it's
Yeah.
like, it's no,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess I would add
before we
that-
ask the
that
questions, we'll
same-
just let Rob, you introduce
Oh, okay.
yourself and give us your background as well, your company.
Rob Tozier with Carity Appraisal. We've been in business for 14 years now. We have roughly 23 or so employees, and we've been doing this for 24 years. Yeah, we're happy to build a project and look forward to tonight.
And then that same question for you, the completion in time for us to be able to do our commitment for the 2027 tax bills?
Early mid-August, we'll be done on 27.
Okay, thank you. You want me to keep going?
Yeah,
or
if
do
you,
want me to?
I wanna make sure everyone knows that they can jump in with questions at any time, but
Okay.
if you wanna keep going, that's fine.
So I read in both of your proposals about the way that you notify the residents that you're in the area. And one of our board members that wasn't here tonight brought that up also. I can't remember, and I apologize, I've reviewed all of this today. Are your cars marked?
We do mark our cars, that's certainly an option. We would ask you what you are comfortable with, whether you want it to say Durham on it specifically, our company name, whatever it is that you want, we can make it happen. You know,
Okay.
whether it's a magnet or something on the door, we can do it in any way that you are comfortable with.
Okay,
Yeah, we have car magnets. They're probably yay big. It says Carity Appraisal Assessing Office below it.
okay,
So our guys always have the vehicles marked as such. They wear a yellow neon vest, have a lanyard with their badge on it. Try to be, you know, hello, here we are, we're in your neighborhood today. You know, conspicuous.
And can I add that we also would take, ID of everybody, and what type of car they're in, and give it to the sheriff's office as well. So everybody, if somebody calls and says there's a strange guy, I mean, we try to make sure that they're identifiable, no matter who it is, to local police or sheriff, so.
okay.
Yeah, and we'll post on our website pictures of our data collectors, with a little blurb about their car information and what neighborhoods we're gonna be in for those coming weeks.
Okay, I think that that's important. We, like, based on some of the things that we see, not on our official town page, but some of the comments that we see in our All Things town page, there are definitely residents that are
very aware if there's a vehicle that they don't
Yes,
recognize.
and very vocal about it, and it turns into a whole thing, and so I just would really wanna build that like PR relationship with the residents to let them know that this is happening and the expectations and, not on, for everybody's safety also, you know, just so that, I think that is an important point to make. Do you find that when you are easily identifiable, I'm sorry that I'm a little bit ignorant to this process, that people are less likely to let you into their homes?
Everybody is different. A lot of times, we're doing this work during the week, so a lot of people aren't home, to
Okay.
be honest. So it's, some people are more comfortable, some people are proud to show you their house, other people don't want you anywhere near it. So it really does depend on the individual that you're coming
And
from.
would you say that that's the same experience for you?
Yeah, it's the same. We do our best to get into every property. Obviously, it's not gonna work. It's 2024. People like their privacy these days, which we respect. Yeah, we want to see as many properties as possible on the inside, so we'll certainly knock and give them our spiel and hope they allow us in.
And then if you're not able to enter, then you make educated guesses about like what kind of flooring is there, you know, like that type of stuff. I guess this is a process question.
No, I think this is a good question, because regardless of what we might have access to, I want people who are watching and people in the audience to hear exactly what this process looks like, because I know questions we're gonna get is, do they have to come into my house? What do they have to see? How long are they gonna be in my house? Do I have to be there? Are they gonna take pictures? Those sorts of things. So if you could kind of describe, each one of you go through, and I'm sure it's similar, so you can bounce off of each other, but describe what the process looks like as on the receiving end as a homeowner who, let's say, lives on Pinkham Brook Road. Like, when will I know you're coming? What will it go like? So, Rob, if you want to start.
Sure. So before we start, we'll mail a postcard out to all the folks in a certain area. We like to batch it into somewhere between 150 and 300 parcels, so we can do that over the next few weeks. So we'll get a postcard in the mail basically saying, you know, somebody from Carity Appraisal will be coming to your house in the next few weeks with a little explanation of the process. So our guys are going to show up unannounced, but they will, again, we'll have that postcard ahead of them. Knock on the door, ring the doorbell, wave to the Ring camera, all that jazz, and ask for an interior inspection if someone's home. If not, then we'll just measure the outside of the property, measure the building, take all of our notes, verify that exterior information. And then at the end of the process, we'll mail out a letter to all the folks who did have the interior inspection, asking for a phone call for an appointment to see the inside. That'll take place in probably February to April of '27. So that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of, you know, a data inspector's day in the life of.
You don't look at any windows?
I mean, no, but if you're measuring a deck and you walk by a slider, you can happen to look in. We're not gonna be like, you know, sitting there with our.
Hardwood floors.
Okay,
Okay, just asking, yeah.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard not to look if you're just walking by a slider or something, we got a full vista, you know, and you're peering in windows, of course, but, I think that's pretty standard stuff, you know, if you're measuring a deck, you take a quick peek in the slider.
And for you all at Deergo, would you say that's a similar process as to how you do it, or is there some differences there?
Absolutely. I try to drive up to the property with our door sign facing the house, so, you know, if they haven't seen me, then when they answer the door, if they are home, they'll see that. I hand them a card that identifies who I am and who at the town office they can contact, and the phone number at the town office that they can call. I've had very, very, very few problems with people. I've worked in a number of towns, and I must have a friendly face or something, because I did have one guy pull a gun on us, but you know, that was.
I'm surprised it's only happened once.
I know, that's part of why I was asking.
Yeah,
Do you all send postcards out in advance as well?
we can.
Okay, you can?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've, like with Woolwich, we sent, the town sent a letter to everybody in town that said that we're gonna be engaging with our work starting at a certain date, and we just sent it, that all went out. And that was it after that, so it's like at some point, from this point on, there may be somebody knocking on your door. So it just kinda depends what you're comfortable with and what you expect, is how we kinda do it, yeah.
Another question I know we'll get, do you have to get on folks' roofs?
No.
No, so people will ask that, you know, and,
Rather not.
do you need,
There's no insurance for that.
No, I was gonna
Just-
say, very bad.
and do you need to see wells or anything like that? Okay.
Do you compare the results to permits? building permits. I was reading something about building permits. You know, if you see an outside shed, do you somehow see if there was a building permit with the town?
If we show up to a property and there's a shed there, but there's no shed on the card, we're just gonna pick up the shed. We're not gonna get into, was there a permit, was there not a permit, because
There's
we'll
no-
be chasing people around forever if we have to do that. We'll just pick up the shed as if it's a new shed and add it to the card to get value.
And when you say compared to the card, you mean there's existing cards for each property that have the information on it that
Yes.
you're going to look at and then compare to?
Just verify it all.
I see, yeah.
So we take what you currently have, and we go out in the field, we verify that what's on the card is correct, and if there's anything else that we find while we're there, we will add that to it.
I see.
So if somebody built a garage with no permit, or for
It'll
whatever
show,
reason
right.
Donna didn't know that it happened,
Yeah.
we would
Sure,
pick that
it's
up
a
and just
code
add it.
problem.
Yeah,
Can't be done.
But never be me.
yeah.
Is there a I'm sorry.
And the same is true if there was a shed and there's not one there, you'll take it off.
Correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is there a peer review of the data collected, or once you do 300 properties or whatever, is there some evaluation to make sure different assessors have similar perspectives of the outcome?
Sure, we do a lot of QC, so basically, once the data collector visits the property, there's a lot of folks that receive that card before it gets finalized. We'll do quality control from our office, we'll flip the cards as they come in, just to make sure just check for stupid, basically, make sure dimensions aren't missing or nothing's missing. And then once all that stuff's data entered, we run our original analysis, we'll go out and do a field review, basically drive by every property in town with the cards, looking at the card, saying, all right, does this make sense, what I'm seeing in front of me versus what's here in the card? Checking data, checking the value, checking the subjective areas, the grade, the quality of construction, and the condition of the home. We'll check that out in the field. So, yeah.
Do you all?
Similar.
We're smaller, so we are gonna be the people doing it, so there isn't the same, he has a bigger company, so he has more people to do the work. So it's gonna be me or David or Nicole, we'll be the ones doing the measuring and the listing and doing it, so we
We'll be
don't.
working together for the first few days, making sure we're on the same track and before we split up and do our own territories. Well, we may buddy up. We haven't gotten that far.
Just depending on how it goes, how much time it takes.
So I thought Jessica was harassing my kid, but she actually had a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you need space in the town office or another place in town for the work?
We do
or-
not.
We don't require it, but a little space to, like a small desk, like some little table to leave stuff may be helpful. Filing cabinet may be helpful, but we don't need any of that stuff. It's just, our folks are gonna check in the morning at the town hall, just say, hey, we're here for the day, about these neighborhoods, whatnot, so they may need to come in and do some sketching. We just have a place to, call home for 15 to 20 minutes or so.
Thank you.
All we would need is, when we get to like the hearing point, you guys can decide where that is, but.
The hearing.
Whether that's here or some other location that you think is appropriate to meet with taxpayers, that's all we would.
Is that something that you attend, Don?
I'm
Those,
sorry?
is that something that you attend, those hearings?
For the most part. I need to keep my mouth shut because the truth is they handle it and then once they are done, it's me. So, for the most part, I will sit in, but I don't have an opinion
Right.
until everybody's done with their job.
Yeah.
And I'm personally ignorant to the process, so I'm asking this for myself, but also I know other people want to know what you mean when you say the hearing process. So,
I can describe that.
Okay, yeah, if you'd like.
Yeah, so basically, when the values are set, we send out a letter to all the folks in town saying, based on the revaluation that took place in 2027, the assessments listed below, please call a number with any questions or to set up a hearing with one of our representatives. It'll have their old value, their new value, the number to call. And then folks will call us, get on our schedule for a 15-minute block. And we'll go over the record card, go over any questions they may have, and just explain the process, make changes where needed. If it requires a site visit, we'll have a schedule available to go back out into the field and visit a property. It's just the last stage of the process to really validate the information and to hear people's concerns about the work we did, whether the assessment's wrong, the data's wrong, or whatnot.
And if folks are comfortable with the letter they received, do they have to set up a hearing with you, or, okay?
No, it's
Just
optional.
double,
It's totally optional.
Do you ever see people that, like, you made assumptions because you weren't able to go in, and you maybe over-assumed, and people want that retracted to, they now want you to come in because they don't have granite countertops, or do you see people
Yeah.
reaching out for those reasons?
Yeah, that could happen.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to make you look at what's currently on the card and you look at what the house is and sometimes you have to make an educated guess about this house is X amount of size. I can see so many bent pipes. I think there's 3 bathrooms and they may come back and say, no, I really only have 2. So, sometimes you kind of have to do that. And that's part of the process. That's the give and take. That's why you have the hearings so that the
Right.
homeowner has the opportunity to tell you that what you collected was incorrect.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Is that fair, Rob? Does that make sense to you?
That's great.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and can I add,
Yeah.
the thing about the hearings is, we also do not know what our tax rate is at that time. So when somebody gets a value that's 3 times what it was before, most of it is also the fear that they can't
They're gonna
afford
pay
the
3 times more
taxes,
taxes.
right? So and it will be more of an education at that point to let everybody know, just because it's 3 times more in no way means. And because we are not gonna estimate the mill rate until we're just not gonna estimate the mill rate.
Right.
I think that's, the residents' biggest fear. My
Yes.
value goes up and I automatically equate that to my taxes are higher.
Yeah.
And I read in your information that seems like you have a strong communication policy up front with what you do there, but you've probably experienced that in past reevaluations where people just feel like, oh, please.
Because it's been so long since our
Yeah.
town has done this.
And the prices are so high right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And even if we had done a reval in 17, we'd still be in the same boat.
Right, right,
So it,
right.
it's just the market now, so, yeah.
We've got 3 years between now and then, so the market may stay flat, it may change.
Right.
We're seeing, the values are still similar, we're just seeing a lower in the inventory. There's just nothing in the market in any town we're working in. It's crazy, but the values are holding. So, we don't have a crystal ball to determine where they're gonna be in 3 years today, but hopefully it's relatively stagnant and it's not gonna be another 10 or 20% added on to these valuations.
So I guess from both companies, we end up with these hard copy cards
Yes,
per residence.
yes.
And then both of you provide electronic data in some database that is provided to you, Donna?
So there is a file for every property in town. And we have property record cards that date back into the 80s, 70s, and it's in that file. Right now, we use Trio for our assessing package. And it works because we're a small town and we don't, there's other programs that have all the bells and whistles and they're fabulous, but Trio works for us because everybody uses it and can use it. It's easy. So when we're talking about the electronic form or of assessing, it would be the Trio assessing package that we use now. We use it for tax collection and anything you do at the town office goes through Trio.
Okay, so the bid price includes both companies loading into Trio for us? Or
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
and we're good there.
yes.
Outside of the field visits, we do most of our work in Trio. So what we do is in your system already.
Oh, you actually go out with iPads or something and?
We just take copies of the cards
Oh,
from
I
the town
see.
office.
Okay.
And take them out and find the errors, make the corrections, pick up what hasn't been picked
On the
up in the
card.
past, delete what needs to be deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, you can update, what we're doing is we're correcting records as we go.
Right.
And you can use that in your system each year between now and 27 to improve your records, or we can just do a separate system, a place system in which we put all our data entry until it comes time to finalize everything.
And are all the measurements that you take, like, just with a normal tape measure, or are you now into some kind of electronic point A to point B, laser or something or other? Could you explain that?
Our guys use both. We have a 100-foot tape with a little reel and handle.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a little single laser pointer where you can just kind of, point from here to the wall. It'll tell you the distance from here to the wall, so you can bounce off something. We have this big device called the ZEB that we use for any really large property, like a big commercial property. It's this little magical wand you walk around with, and it takes a 3D image of the structure, and you can strip out the measurements from that. And those are the 3 devices that we use: tape, laser, and big laser.
Everything except the big thing that he's talking about.
I'm a tape guy.
The manual tape guy.
Yeah.
Jerry, do you have any questions?
Yeah, have either of you put together any kind of like video explaining who you are and what you do and the process that towns can put on that website so they can click and say, oh, yeah, you know these guys, this is how it works. Have we ever done anything like that?
We've done video. We did one in Brunswick back in 2017 where we actually showed, videotaped the data collector knocking on the door, walking around the house, doing the interior inspection, getting the measurements. We put that up online for a while. We haven't done anything since, but we do put, like I said, photos of our folks on our website and information about their vehicles and whatnot. So.
No, we haven't made a video of our works, no, we have not.
Josh, do you have any more questions?
No, I mean, I think the biggest issue, whoever we choose, is going to be notification to the town, and, this is, and then you see, like, what happened in Brunswick and that stuff, but that's all conversation and people listening, and
Yeah.
some people are gonna do it, and some people aren't gonna pay attention, so.
And notifications are the big thing to me. I mean, I'm sure you all experience working in smaller municipalities where there's like a road where when your car turns down, it's the first time a car that isn't one of 6 cars has driven down that road in months, so people are all on high alert. So just, that's probably a lot on our end too for outreach to make sure people know, but also just making sure, everyone has had ample opportunity to know that someone's gonna come knocking on their door. I don't have any other questions. Do either of you have additional questions?
I have 2.
Oh,
Sorry.
Do either of you have any other project commitments for 2027?
I don't think anything's signed yet. We might have Monmouth, that's 27. Oh, Oakland,
20,
sorry, Oakland.
25 is.
Monmouth's next year.
That's another one of
In
those.
front of me.
Don't flake on me now.
That you may have or do have?
It's signed.
It's signed, okay.
Yeah, that's the only one we have.
Do you folks have any other?
No, our only other,
Actually, Reedfield is.
oh, is that supposed to be done for 27?
Yeah, I'm the assessing agent in Reedfield.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I've been working there since 17. And one of our partners, Kathleen and I are working on that, Summers. So I gave them a good price and said, if we can do it over 4 summers, we'll honor this price, and they took it. But we're gonna have 90% of the work done by 26.
What's the actual time frame it takes to do a town like Durham? Is it a 3 or 4 week process, a 2-month process?
It really depends on the assets that you can throw at it. If you have a lot of people, I mean, you can come through and you can hit all the houses in a matter of weeks if you have the staff do that. For us, it would be, certainly it would be probably a year of doing
I see.
field collection for
Okay,
us, because
yeah.
we would only probably hit, 50 houses a week, 60 houses a week, 70 houses a week, depending on when that was. So it would take us from when snow melts until the fall. If you have more people, you can obviously do it faster. I mean, if you can come in and you can, you might be able to explain that better, because you guys are bigger than us, so you guys can probably hit.
Yeah, we try to keep
Do it
the
faster
number of
than
staff in the town to a minimum. I don't want to send 8 people here and then have someone doing one thing and someone doing something different over here. We try to limit it to just a couple of data collectors, and yeah, I mean, we'll start out kind of slow, maybe 1 day a week, 1 day every 2 weeks, and we'll ramp up as time draws near to completion. We'll probably finish the data collection in probably February of 27. Would be my guess. So it'll be a slow process.
Okay.
But to Deb's point, it's not like there's just gonna be this 1 month where everyone's gonna get their door knocked on. It's just gonna be like, hey, over the next year, this is what's gonna happen, so.
Yes, that's correct.
And I know you mentioned that you batch things and send something about sending things out. When you batch them, will that give somebody, will they get, when they get contacted, that'll give them a rough idea, like in the metric of weeks to when you might be there? Or is everyone just gonna be told, hey, sometime in 27, someone's gonna knock on your door?
No, I'll say in the next 45 or 60 days.
Okay.
So we narrow it down, and then once we get that batch done, we'll go to batch 2 and do new postcards, we'll go to batch 3, do new postcards, so we just keep cycling through the batches until we finish.
And that's something we could probably post on our
Mhm.
website
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah, it's on our website, so you can certainly add it to
Yep.
your website as well.
And how about for you all, similar, different, or?
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you wanna have, we typically, kinda work through the maps that you have, so like, we'll kinda
Right.
start in one area of town, and we just kinda keep moving methodically through that process with the roads that make sense. Sometimes the map doesn't quite work, cause the subdivision might go into another one, but
Yep.
you can kinda think about how you look at the town with your overall tax maps, and we'll kinda work through that in some way that makes sense.
And then another question for both of you, because I know folks want to know, what are your hours of operations and days? So weekdays only, weekdays and weekends, evenings, what's that look like for folks?
Just for us, just weekdays, we'll do Monday through Friday, probably get into town around 8:30, kind of take half an hour to regroup, get your stuff ready for the day, and by 9 o'clock, knock on the doors. Done by 4:30, depending on the season. Obviously, we're limited in the winter to daylight. Yeah, that's basically it.
Same? Okay.
Yeah, we agree, we're not gonna be knocking on people's doors on Sundays or Saturdays.
I didn't think so, but I figured that out so everyone knows,
It's a very
yeah.
fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, are you the current town manager
In Monmouth,
in
yes.
Monmouth?
Yeah.
When I read that, I was like, how does the town manager have time?
Yeah,
Well, and the weird part is I work for him in Monmouth
in a
too. So we work together there. It's a very small, yeah. And Rob's done lots of revals for me in different places, so,
he's doing my revale in Monmouth.
yeah.
So he's-
He's there for us next
This is
year.
how this
Yeah,
is
so
how this,
that's-
he's
yeah.
gonna do the reval for my wife, who's the assessor in Oakland, he's doing that
Yeah,
too. So it's
so-
like, we're all,
Yeah.
it's a very small community, like I
Yeah.
said when we
It's
started.
been blowing up. We're getting phone calls every 2 to 4 weeks, just asking for prices. It's
Yeah.
crazy, which is why we're now into 2027 and 2028.
Yeah. And that's, and we wanted 26. I mean, we hoped for, there's no way we were gonna have 26. So the whole idea now is,
Yeah, and
let's,
speaking of that, when do you need to know in order for us to be able to lock in 27? When do you need a decision, either one of you, when would you need to know? It sounds like you might have some other things pending, but, I just wanna make sure that we don't wait and then all of a sudden you're like, it's looking like 28 now.
No,
So,
no, we'll lock it in. We'll
Yeah.
lock it in to 27. I mean, you can take a couple months if you need a couple months. We're
Yeah.
not gonna start anytime soon, so.
well,
Right.
I was kinda hoping that maybe in the next couple of weeks
Yeah,
between
we
now
should.
and your
We're
next,
not- we're-
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not a, we're not gonna wait.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll
So
figure
that-
it out.
That way, at least I know too, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
we
yeah.
can have communication for whatever we
Yeah.
need to do. Which-
Yeah, we're in the same boat, I mean, a
Yeah.
couple of months would be fine for us, honestly, so whatever you guys need to do.
Can't you say like next week?
Oh, no,
We can
yeah.
say it, we
Yeah,
can,
that's
we can
right.
say it,
Yeah.
that's how we
That
like,
sounds great.
Yeah.
Just say.
no, I think,
Yeah.
I think that's how we get out of
Yeah.
that situation where we just like kind of keep
Oh, yeah,
push,
no.
push, like.
No,
if
no, I
we-
don't
yeah.
think
I think we're
not
all on
intending
that
to
same
push it
page,
at all.
that it's just easier for us to like deal with what's in
I'm
front
just
of
finding
us.
out if it's like, oh, we've got 2 other people we need to know tomorrow, It doesn't sound like that's the case, so.
Yeah.
Did you have another question
I
before we
do,
wrap up?
and maybe this isn't even necessary for me to know, but I just feel like I've like to understand things, so I ask a lot of questions, maybe you caught on to that. Can you explain, like, what's happening here where these things are different? What are these examples of? What am I looking at? I know that this is Trio, I recognize that this is Trio. I'm looking at what's in there, right, and so they have different values, like listed? Can you just explain what's going on here?
It's just an example of cost schedules
Oh, okay.
on Trio.
Yeah. The cost schedules for pricing out structures, is that what that is?
Oh, okay.
Square
I was
foot-
like,
square
how's
foot
this
values.
working? Are these like the different values in different towns and you're giving us an example of what the different values in different towns looks like? Where like in one town, a regular lot is valued at 60. Okay, I understand now. Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's just an example of what cost schedule, that we develop those for your community based on what we find in the field, basically.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so then, town staff is not involved in the process at all? You get the contract, go do your thing, you deliver hard copy cards, you deliver electronic data in Trio, it all goes to our town folks, and we go from there.
And can I answer that? I've been here for a long time. I was here with the last reval in 2010. One of the things that happens is if somebody is upset over their value, they come see me. Well, you're upset, you keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. So when we have a reval, the whole idea is I am out of it. We are paying people with fresh eyes to look at it, come up with values. You know, it might be something I've looked at 5 times and I look at it the same way, but somebody else will look at it and say, right? And the whole town is redone that way. We've paid them to do a job until after the hearings and all of that information is turned back over. We have no opinion of anything. You will have certain things that you might need to make decisions on, whether or not we want to assess above ground pools or canvas sheds,
Awnings, yeah.
those kind of things.
The select board decides that? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
you are the assessors,
Right.
you know, I will make recommendations to you, but you live here. You are
Right.
the assessors, so there's things that you'd have to decide. But for the most part, we stay out of it. Once they give it to us, every appeal then comes to the town. So, we try really hard to,
Get it right the first
yeah,
time.
Right. And have
yeah,
the
let
hearings.
everybody do their thing. We have faith in both of these companies are great companies, so I have no problem with whatever we do.
And so the upfront communication to the town, like this is gonna be happening and this is what it means, is that left up to the select board, or when we sign a contract with either of you, you're actually hoisting aboard that communication piece, which I think is important. You know, so people who have strong reservations about having their property reassessed, just understand why it's the right thing to do, what it means, what's the potential impact to their pocketbook maybe, but, you know, that, just that upfront communication, getting everyone to understand it. When Heather mentioned this to me a while ago, I was like, oh, my taxes are gonna go up. And then I went on YouTube and I found this
She did find a
awesome,
great, yeah.
like 4-minute explanation that no one could have probably said, you know, to me to understand. I thought, wow, we should do the reassessment. I mean, it was really good.
I clearly didn't explain it well.
No, actually, I could relate to what you did, but just seeing it, I'm just wondering, I think that's a big part of just kind of calming people's concerns over
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
There's no
'cause like you're
question the
saying-
town will.
Like you're saying, everybody that I've
Yes.
seen talk about this has been like, why would we do a reassessment right
Right.
now? All of our values are gonna be inflated and we're never gonna be able to afford our taxes. So we don't, like, if there's outreach that you all have available or material
Right.
like that to present, that's great,
And-
or maybe that's gonna fall on, this might be just more of our discussion right now, that might
Yeah,
fall on
that's-
us,
yeah.
but.
I wasn't
And they
sure.
wouldn't start for a while,
Mhm.
because they're not even here, so
Right.
it
We
would fall
could-
on the town
Okay, we
early.
could, yeah.
And, you know, and we wanna make sure that we put things in the town
newsletter.
report
Right,
and the
right,
newsletters
right.
and,
We have how many
You
tax
know.
bills that are going out, where we could say this is coming, and
Yeah.
here's your
Exactly.
explanation, and then we don't have to pay for extra mailing.
Yeah.
In 3 years to
that's
explain.
right, that's right.
Right,
So-
I have ideas and I don't want them to have to
Yeah.
sit through that, but I'm making my
Yeah.
notes of
Yeah.
like
So-
QR codes in the tax bill.
So, does that, does that wrap up every question we have for you all? And you look like you have something you wanna say, so I wanna give you all the chance to tell us anything you think we need to hear too.
I worked for the state for a long
Yeah.
time, worked with municipal assessors for a long time, and we always talk about equity. We want equity amongst the taxes, you know, we want fairness amongst the taxes. And we understand that, but taxpayers generally don't. Then there was a lady assessor who came up with a saying, she said, She said, "We can all agree that property taxes are unfair. It's the assessor's job to make them equally unfair for everybody."
That's right. That's 100% right.
Use it.
And we do have that on video, so we can go back.
Absolutely.
I just had one more question. So I noticed in the back of your packet of information, like the lots of like digital enhancement type things. But I don't see Trio specifically mentioned in yours. Maybe I missed it. I apologize if I did. I just want to make sure that the way that you're collecting your electronic data will work with our Trio system.
Of course.
Okay. And it doesn't put more work on Donna to have to do entry, like that would come from you in this?
No,
Okay.
no. So what is also in there is a great assessing program, which is Patriot Properties. And we're going to use it in Monmouth. I'm gonna go from another great program to Patriot. And normally, I would say, we need to up our game and get a better program, but not in Durham. Durham is a Trio town. They work great with what we have. There's lots of people in the town office that kind of cross into looking at real estate side of it, and then the tax collection. If that is to come to Durham, it would be just mine. I mean, we wouldn't have anybody else that would be able to get into it. I wanna say it's too high, everything for what we use, and I mean that in a nice way.
Yeah, we
I want
understand.
everybody to be able to get in and see what we have, and using Trio is the best for us.
Cool.
Okay.
Alrighty, well, I think we got a lot of good information today. Thank you all for coming and answering our questions, and hopefully hear back from us. I doubt it will be 2 months before we get back to either one of you.
Any closing comments that you'd like to make before we?
No, I just wanna say I'd love to work with you folks, that's all. And I think we're very qualified for the job, we're all over Maine, we'd love to add Durham to our core list of Maine clients.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Donna, for being here too.
Welcome, nice to see, we haven't met, but
Yes,
nice to see you.
I love her.
Nice to see you.
Alrighty. So, even though this is technically new business, I would move to old business for the purposes of conversation. We might wanna just stick with this one before we move down our further line of old business and just come up with, maybe discuss a timeline on when we would wanna make a decision. I think we got a lot of good information. I don't think I'm not proposing we make a decision tonight. I actually don't think we should. I think we should kind of ruminate on this a little bit and also give Joe the chance to watch the video, so he can chime in as well. So I don't know if we wanna talk about putting this on for a decision for our next meeting or the meeting after, or what folks think, so. And if Jerry, if you have any insight here too, much appreciated.
Yeah, I think the 28th looks good to me. I mean, that's what I would try to,
It's gonna be a long, well, hopefully it's a long meeting with a lot of presentations.
Right.
But, it might be a good time. To me, I was asking Jerry if we should do it, we need to go into an executive session to discuss this, because I think we wanna hear what Donna has to say at her.
That was what I was
recommendation.
gonna ask, is that if we could ask her what her,
And so Jerry said she could come back at the next meeting.
yeah, is she coming back, oh, she left? Is she coming
Yes,
back?
She's out in the parking lot. right
Yeah,
now.
that was gonna be my suggestion, is that I know we have a very busy schedule for our next meeting, but I do think that it's important that we, lock this in, and,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, we're
I
good.
can't tell.
She
Donna.
was-
It looks
she's
like
still
she's
here.
leaving.
Do you want
Yeah,
to
she's
grab
here.
her and ask her if she can stay for executive session, just so
You
that we
can, I don't think she was planning on it, but you can.
She's
I
getting
mean,
in
real-
her car and leaving, so.
real quick.
Okay, so,
We
But
can bring,
I
we
think
can,
we
can
should,
wait.
I think waiting, I think what Joe said is waiting for
yeah,
Joe
we're
to
good.
talk.
we're good, Phyllis.
I think she'd be willing to come back on the 28th.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Or even if you had a conversation with her and came back and reported.
Yeah, you can do
I mean,
that too.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, is, I mean, it sounds from what Donna's saying, is she's worked with both of them, comfortable with both of them. This is just up for us to make some decisions, review the proposals, give Joe Tom time to watch the video and review if he has any questions as well. And then we can just see if Donna will come the 28th, and we can handle any necessary questions in an executive session.
Yep.
And then we can make, or if we're just comfortable making a decision, but I'd like to make the decision this month, because we have a lot to do this year, and this is, kind of seems like an easier thing to check off the box, and we can tuck it away, and then we can talk about strategy, and I don't want it to be a long-term, like, decide next year, couple months, you know?
So, I agree.
Unless anyone else has a different opinion, does that work for folks to?
No, I think it dovetails into the next topic.
Yeah,
Before we move on to the next topic, though, just a quick question. Does the pricing that they gave us fit what we put in the town meeting? That got
Yes.
voted on? Okay.
Yes, it does.
perfect. Okay, seeing no more questions on this, we're gonna move to old business B, 2024 work priorities and board committees. I just wanna say, I thought that it was excellent workshop last week. I really feel like we got a lot down. I think it was a good session for us to get input from everybody. I think it was a great session for us to all share our questions and concerns. We certainly listed out more than a year's worth of work. So, like Jerry said, when he looked at the list at the end of the meeting, like, hopefully some things are getting put on the back burner for the following year instead. And so I just wanted to go through the list of things we have here and kind of get an idea of how we want to prioritize them and how we want to go about making those things happen. So I thought maybe what we could do is set this back up and kind of just go through and talk on each page and just kind of have a vote of what we want to list as our board's top 3 priorities for each organization or each group in town, and then we can communicate to those groups, this is what we want you to work on this year. Like I said, if the chairs or the members of that group then say, this is not what we want to work on, and they disagree with us, we can have a separate one-on-one meeting with them. But I think it's really important for folks to see that the decisions on the process are coming from the board as to what we should be focusing on. At this point, we can also highlight things that we're gonna need additional resources for. Like I said last meeting, not everything, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, so we should come up with a list, and if we have if we have multiple situations where there's something, all these things have to happen this year, and there's just no way we can make it happen, we need to talk about how we go about that and explore options, whether it mean, things we kicked around, finding assistance elsewhere, or putting some things on a moratorium type discussion temporarily, those sorts of things. So I think it's just important we think about that as we're going through. So, Josh,
One thing we
you got
didn't talk about, and I don't know if it was necessarily a fit for last week, but Donna raised it today, is going from the calendar year to a fiscal year.
something? Yeah.
And it sounds like, with this reevaluation in 2027, that might be the right time to get it set up. So I think.
Do you wanna add it to the one that didn't have a home?
So, yeah,
The
so I
last
think
one,
that's gonna start with us, and trickle down, but I think I would like to make that a priority based on this conversation tonight. Wasn't a priority for me before.
Yeah, but
But-
new information. Yeah.
I think you're right, but that's with us.
Right.
The
Right.
boards and the committees wouldn't be
Right.
looking at that.
So can we just add it to that one that doesn't have a
On
home?
the back
I
page,
just-
yeah, the very last page, we just wanna put that on there.
I just want to put that out there
Yeah.
because I think that's a conversation
Totally.
that will trickle down a little bit, but.
It's like,
Yeah, and
it's
I-
like me with the policies thing or the fee schedule, that's us,
That's
not
us,
them.
that's
And
not
that's where I
them,
think
so
what-
it's separate.
And I
Right.
think what we're doing here is, if we're highlighting what's for each one of those groups, we're picking up anything that either falls for us or doesn't fit neatly in one of those, so that's where we can add that. So when we come up with a list, it might be, this is a conservation committee's main goals and objectives, this is historical society or historic district commission, and then we will set what we are going to do as an individual board as well. Like-
Yeah, no, and we had the law enforcement, I think a couple other things,
Yeah.
but this wasn't mentioned, but I want to add it to that.
Right.
So I want to maybe start with planning board rather than conservation commission, because we just know that some of the planning board stuff gets kicked to the Conservation Commission. And in the past, that's kind of been done by the planning board, almost directing the Conservation Commission. I would be more comfortable if that direction came for both boards from us as opposed. And so I wanna start off here as to what our top objectives are within here. So, Josh, do you wanna start and tell us what your
Sure,
top three would be?
The top three,
Do we have a marker?
There's some right here.
I got some
No,
markers.
I think the top three, and I think it was prioritized by John, would be the battery storage, the resource protection refinement. I think that, 1A, 1B for me.
Well, mine's dead, that's dead, so
Oh.
I'm gonna put some tally marks here. So, tally there. So, battery storage, resource, RP refinement for you is the top two. Do you have a third one that's your top?
And all of the above?
Yeah, and then the rest. Okay. How about you, Deb?
Why is the battery energy storage system so high on the list? I mean, I don't know enough about it. It's like, is it something critical that's happening in the near term that we are?
We are getting some inquiries and
Okay.
and possibly some applications.
Yeah.
And right now, that would fall under the conditional use permit.
Yeah, and
So
that's
it's
to catch
really important.
to catch you up on our last year's stuff is what we realized is that we have just a set mode of operation of things for permitting, like, building permits, road permits, those sorts of things, and everything else that doesn't fit neatly into something is put into the conditional use category, which does not give enough guidance on some of these new emerging things. So like, if someone wanted to put in a cell phone tower, or a wind turbine, or a skyscraper, or something like that, we don't necessarily have those things. And when we started looking at things that are happening in municipalities around the state, solar development and battery storage is one of them. And so, just to clarify, a lot of folks, when they hear battery storage, they're thinking about as part of energy projects, like, oh, we're putting up this generating facility, let's put some battery storage. But like I said at our workshop, some of this is just for infrastructure projects of just stashing big arrays of batteries to store power from the existing grid for high volume needs, or that's my at least understanding. So,
Okay, and the town can't just like, okay, let's defer that request until we have some. I see.
Yeah. Yeah, because
So-
then you get into a situation where after you've received an application, people are saying, well, now you're changing the
Yeah.
rules, so that's why it's up there with it.
Which is why I suggested potentially a moratorium if we needed it. But that has to go before the town, and they have to vote to put that in place.
And that's where we talked a little bit about moratoriums are more or less, my understanding, Jerry, is to say, we do not have adequate resources to address this right now, so you don't put a moratorium and then it's indefinite, oh, we're never gonna get to it.
Right, no,
Yeah.
it's to
No,
get your
I
ducks
know
in a
you know
row.
that, I'm just
Okay.
clarifying, because I
Yeah.
think sometimes when people hear moratorium, they're like, good, we never have to think about this being something that we talk about in town, whereas I just wanna clarify, that's not it.
And you have to meet certain requirements
Yeah.
to get there. You can't just do it.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, then I would pick the same top two, and,
we got
just,
two
I guess,
tallies there.
as we talked about with the assessment, if you're not happy with the results, you can go to a hearing. We're hearing public comment that they're not happy with the results of the,
Mm-hmm.
protection.
Resource
plan.
protection.
And can I forgot to add the fee structure for the meetings that Heather, you brought up, that was, for people coming back to the planning board. I think that's something that falls under our
Yeah, I agree.
duties.
I
And
just
so I
wanted
think
to note
that's,
that to
That was a
them,
good comment.
so
Yeah.
that they are a little bit more aware of the fact that we do have the ability to do that.
right, and so that's something, did we decide we could do it once a year? We could do it as.
Periodically, so more, as
So
you
as,
need.
so
Yeah.
that's something that we should discuss. If it's happening a lot, then probably should be on a meeting sometime soon.
And the
So I
issue-
see a
and
reason-
the issue of, not granting permits to people who owe back taxes too.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think that's on, so I'm already seeing we're gonna have a recurring theme of every page, we're gonna come up with things for them to do. and then more for the back page, and then we'll have more to dive in there. But this is really important because we also don't have to think about this as a one-year goal. Like, I think it's really good to think long-term, because some of these things build upon each other. So, I gave everyone 3 votes per page, and people are only using 2 votes. So, do you have a third, what you would list as maybe your third priority of yours?
I think the codification issue.
Where are we at here? Yeah.
So that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
That's.
Right, but that's I think it's still good to show that we're setting priorities and we're making those things happen too. So Heather, where did you want to fall on this?
So, I agree with those 3 choices.
Is that where you want your tallies?
Yeah, I wanna make a comment about,
Absolutely.
2 things. One, I would entertain the idea, I think Juliet brought it up, about a possible consultant situation for the battery storage. Because that is quickly becoming the top priority, and if that was off the planning board's plate, it frees them up to do some of the other work that, we have to work on. So I would just, while we're designing this and thinking of this, I would also just like for people to keep in the back of their mind that we potentially should explore the
So
third-party option.
I think that's a good point, but my question is, Jerry, for something like that, wouldn't that have to have been budgeted for?
Yes.
And so I think that's a challenge right now. I tend to agree on that, now that you mention it, because I think that this is something that gets very technical very quickly. Like, just like from like a engineering standpoint, it's much more foreign than things that we're used to.
So how does that work? Like, if we need technical expertise, and I know that our planning board is amazing, but I don't think that any of them have, I mean, I know we have George, but like, if we need technical expertise to be able to design an ordinance around something like that, and we haven't budgeted for that, how does that work?
Well, it's tough, because we don't have the budget to do it. So we would have to do it in-house until we develop the budget or raise the money to do it.
So I have a
And then-
question about that, Jerry. I'm sorry.
Once we do that, I mean, we can consult with whomever.
And while we're talking about these
Hello.
things, I know that we got that paper when I first became a board member of, services that GP-COG offers to municipalities, whether by cost or not. And I'm just curious to know if we're ever cross-referencing with what GP-COG offers for resources to be able to help with these types of things.
I would probably use them sparingly, because they're another government agency that sort of, they work for government, and they're stretched.
Yeah.
Like, they're a year behind just on this thing here.
Okay.
So to get real good technical expertise, you'd want to get a consultant.
Third party.
Yeah,
Yeah, so right
really-
now, we're diving a little bit into how we're accomplishing these things, and I just wanna rank them right now.
Okay.
But you did bring up a good question, so not that I'm suggesting this as a solution, but just to understand. For any of these things, if we find them to be an emerging issue that absolutely needs to be addressed, but we're worried about not having the expertise or the time, and you do go the moratorium route, that requires a special town meeting. And at that same special town meeting, could you do a amendment to the budget to say, we're putting on a moratorium, explaining that a moratorium has an end date, and that we're going to ask to raise additional funds or move funds around to hire a consultant, or,
Yeah,
cause that's just one of those things that, like, this isn't like a moratorium of 6 months isn't, oh, and then 6 months we think about it again. We need to be very thoughtful on that, so. I don't wanna dive too much into the how right now while we rank, but did you have another thing
I
about
just
the
wanna
how?
follow up with what you said. I don't think we could raise more, right, because we've already committed taxes, but we could pose a question to transfer, out of the general fund or, whatever. We can't raise in the middle of
Right.
when we've already
Okay,
committed
yeah,
taxes.
sorry, thank you for, that's not what I wasn't trying to say raise, but you clarified the verbiage there for me, which is important, so I appreciate that.
So
I was
without
gonna
having like a, how do we get to it? My top 3 are the battery storage, definitely RP, and then codification.
Yep. So that's gonna be my 3 as well. For me, number 1 is the RP refinement, just because, to clarify for anyone watching at home or anyone in the audience, there was a, issue raised about the current resource protection district, and someone had a member of the state government come out and do an evaluation on their property, and they discovered new information that wasn't available during the original resource protection drawing that is pertinent, and several landowners have brought it up. So I think that with our commitment to always going by the best available data and the best available information, we should follow suit with that and focus on that. So that's why that's a big one for me. Battery storage, for everything that's been mentioned tonight, is a big thing for me as well. And then the codification, which we know we have allocated the funding for, and this is one of those things that's important to me, because I feel like anytime we can make something simpler and cut down on staff hours to figure out an answer, it saves us money and allows us to do more things. So, now that we've talked about the planning board, I want to go back to Conservation Commission, because I think sometimes that this gets overlapped with. And this is where we can start ranking these for them. So, we started with Josh last time. I'll start with you this time, Deb, if you want to rank your top three.
Do you know, I'm sorry, do you know if they found out about the grant yet? Weren't they supposed to find out this week?
Yeah, and I haven't heard yet.
Okay.
Jess, you haven't heard? No.
What's AG again?
This is the
Ag.
Ag Committee if formed. So, the Agriculture Committee that's being talked about by some members. So I'm not exactly sure. I think that the note on here from our meeting was we would want them to work together.
Okay.
So
But-
what I actually took like detailed
Oh,
notes
perfect.
while we were talking, and their note about the ag was working with them in the second phase of the solar ordinance to do siting, like what sites
Yeah.
would be appropriate and then what sites would not be appropriate given the fact that they're valuable resource agricultural,
Yeah.
land. We wouldn't necessarily want to put
Mm-hmm.
solar farms or whatever on those properties.
Okay.
And having them
Yeah.
help out with that process.
Yeah.
The inventory.
Integrating. Yeah. So, Deb, do you want to start with your top three for this group?
Yeah, another clarifying question though. If we already voted to have those other two things on,
I think that if we were to get in a scenario where we voted that it's a priority for this board and the planning board, we could then direct one to work on that for the other. So like if you were to say, battery's really important here, and you think that they're a better place for working on it, this is, I think, where we would mark that.
well, which committee would lead?
So when, like, for example, with the resource protection, that has to be done through the planning board, but the legwork was done by the Conservation Commission. And so I think that the reason this got put here was because the thought process might be the same, that, the Conservation Commission should be involved in the legwork of that. Whether we agree that the Conservation Commission should be involved in the legwork of that is kind of up for us to decide, and so,
I would say the open space grants.
Yep.
And the solar part too.
okay, cool. Josh?
Well, I think the legwork for the resource protection started with the Conservation Committee last time, and it should start there again. And I also think the open space grant and solar.
Cool. Heather?
RP. So other than the planning board hosting, I think that should go exactly like it went before, where
Yep.
the Conservation Commission really drives that, and then,
Mm-hmm.
and then, I guess, I wish that I had more like knowledge or understanding of what the battery storage entails in terms of, so like I'm confident in the planning board's ability to like develop standards in terms of like buffering and stuff like that. But I do think that the Conservation Commission needs to be involved to make sure that we're not putting battery storage in areas of high priority. And so I don't really know how to rank
So-
that.
My understanding is why the Conservation Commission was involved with the solar ordinance is that because it's uses a large space of land. And that the planning board did not have the capacity to take that project on last year, so the planning board asked the Conservation Commission to do that for them. I'm not entirely sure that coming up with the battery storage falls neatly within the Conservation Commission is purview, in the sense that outside of the fact that it just is potentially put on currently undeveloped land, I don't know what the conservation tie is to that.
So what I wrote down for notes was joint planning board session, potential battery storage projects in town. That was what I put for a note.
And so I think those two committee, they're gonna work together already. And so, I mean, my concern is saying, well, the conservation, we wanna direct the conservation committee to do this and planning board to do that, is they're already working together, they've shown the ability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that includes, you know, the Historic Commission, like, they all wanna work together, they all wanna help out everybody. So, to me, you know, I voted for the RP updates because it started with them, they have that experience, knowing that they're going to be working with the planning board. I think the battery storage is something similar, where they'll work together to sort of, and with the open space, so.
Yeah, I agree, so, to what you're saying, Josh, is if this ends up getting, the battery storage ends up getting assigned to the planning board, we would then say, but please work with Conservation Commission and Historic District, to come up with a plan, so, because that's going to be something that they're all interested in participating, so this might be better reserved for the planning board, and then
Okay.
having them break it up equally,
Okay,
but,
So then-
oh, go ahead, sorry.
so then those three things are the things that I would note as my top three things.
Yeah,
And the RP update being, well, it's really hard, like the open space grant, well, no.
in my mind, this has to happen
Yeah, it
this
has
year.
to, yeah.
There,
I agree.
this is like almost non-negotiable in my
Right.
mind in terms of most important thing that we have to do because of the severity, resource protection update, because of the severity of it, because we're getting a lot of feedback from the public, and because we developed that data protocol and some new information has come to light, and we need to make sure that we're being as fair and equitable as possible. That was in because of the comp plan. And so in my mind, it's RP, this open space thing here, I think that's important if they capture those funds to then utilize them, because that can help drive a lot of discussion about
Right.
things like this and this.
Right,
So this to me is like number one, and then this is number two to me. This is gonna be a big lift, the solar ordinance part two. What the planning board and conservation commission brought up last time was talking about more or less creating like areas within town that are, for lack, I don't wanna say zoned, but essentially say, this is an area where, if they modeled it after like, let's say Topsom, they would say, this is an area where you're paying a mitigation fee of X amount of dollars per acre. If you go here, that mitigation fee is 2 times that, and if you go here, it's 3 times that. So just throwing a very broad example, it might be, if you're putting it in a field that has prime agricultural soils, it might be 3 times more expensive than if you're putting it in a brown field or something like that. Now, this is that process that like Topsom has is very intricate in the sense that it's more or less putting additional restrictions on some people's property, and then it's also creating a fee structure that we don't currently have. Where does that money go towards? What does that money go into? So this is a big, big lift and that would involve, I think, our approval along several different steps there. So, and I don't know if this is a realistic lift if they're doing resource protection updates and they get the open space grant and they end up getting pulled into battery storage, so.
So for me, I think what needs to happen is, and I keep saying this, right, is that for a very long time, I think that we've always been a reactive or living on 1 year at a time. And so while we're doing this, and I think this is incredibly important, and I love the trajectory that we're on, I do think that we need to also like start getting a little bit of planning that's happening out more than 1 year.
Yeah.
And so if we're moving towards that, then I would say that might not happen this year, but I'd like to see some movement on it in the right direction.
Are we telling them that they have to do X, Y, Z, or we're saying these are our priorities, these are the ones we'd like you to work on, but if you can do RP updates, open space grant, and one other thing, you know, that's up to you, we're saying here are our priorities, they're gonna have to figure out what they can and can't do. Because I think these are all priorities, these are our top priorities, so, you know, I
That's fair.
understand you're
That's a
saying,
good
I understand
plan.
you're saying that,
Yeah.
you know, they have to do this and this and this for the solar
I'm
part
not saying
too,
they have
but,
to do that, that's
but-
just what they had vocalized.
but I still think we can call it a priority
Yeah.
and they have to figure out what they can and can't do, understanding that it's one of, I think, at least three of us have made that one of our top 3 priorities.
Right.
And so they should, if they can't do it this year with the other things, I think they need to start planning in the future, and I think they can plan for next year while doing these other things.
And a
So-
perfect example to that, Josh, is why we got to this solar part 2 conversation anyways, because last year, their priority was creating a solar ordinance. They came up and through the process realized we're gonna have to break this up because we can't do it all at once, so let's do this later. And so I think what you're saying is, if we're saying you have to do resource protection update and then we prioritize open space and solar, it's kinda up to them to then decide, do we think we can take this on, here, we need additional resources or we need more time? Is that kinda what you're saying?
Right, and
Yeah.
like, you know, I think resource protection updates was something that they said, planning board said, we said, is number 1.
Yeah.
So I think we're all on the same page. The other things, I think they, you know, the open space grant goes away if they don't get the grant,
Right, that's true, that's a good point, Josh.
And so then, you know, then maybe they could do solar, or maybe they're gonna say, we can't do solar, but we can work with the ag committee and we can help out in these phases of the battery storage.
Yeah,
When we started this discussion, it was here are our priorities for them, with the understanding that they're gonna do what they can, and, you know, I think the only one that I'm going to say has to be worked on is the RP updates.
yeah.
But I expect them to come back and say, hey, we did the RP updates, we couldn't do X, we couldn't do solar, but we, you know, we could fit in this, or
Well-
this and this, or this.
Especially
So-
because some of this open space
And it
planning
all-
might drive the solar.
It all drives
might
the solar,
drive
the
that.
battery storage, it does it all, so I think.
Are we in agreement then that we're saying to Conservation Commission, we need you to come up with a solution to the resource protection issue, and then we want you to prioritize open space grant and solar planning, communicate with us with your needs and your timelines as you go along?
Yes, and
Okay.
then one other point to that is that I think it's really important, I think I had said this last year and I just really wanna make sure it happens this year, is that we reach out to the other boards and committees the way that we do to the department heads in terms of, I know it's CIP, right, and this doesn't fall under CIP, but give them the opportunity ahead of when we're making the budget to be able to budget for these types of things. Like if we had money in the budget, right? If we like put out the request to these other boards, like what do you need for resources in order to get the battery storage done? And if they said, we need a third-party consultant and it's gonna cost us $50,000, we need to know that ahead of budget season. And so.
Yeah, and I think that
That's
this
what
is.
George is for.
I think, yeah, but I think that that's part of what we're doing here, is we're setting the priorities, setting expectations. That's getting diverted to boards, and then people like, the boards are gonna be communicating with people like George and Jerry and us, and then we're gonna find that out now moving forward. So rather than just saying, oh, we can't get it done this year, it's gonna be why and what do you need? And then we can take that into consideration when
Right.
we're developing the budget.
But when I'm thinking back to the budget season and like what the planning, I don't remember what the heading was this year, what that budget looked like. I don't recall there being any extra, it was basically salary, planning board salaries, right? And then like
Yeah.
map updates and stuff like that.
Map
There was
updates.
no like budget to do any
No,
resources for projects. I mean,
Yeah.
that really needs to happen.
I agree.
That's something that George needs to ask us for. I don't think putting that on the planning board is appropriate. I think George needs to know, this is what we're working on, this is what we need to work on.
Well-
Here's what I need to
So
do.
is that direction
Well,
we can give you and you're gonna
Yes,
pass
well,
that?
right, to put it in the budget it helps when it's supported by the select board.
Yeah.
Then
And
we
so-
Won't we have another one of the sessions like we had last week where we're all together and we give an update on,
Yeah.
these? We
I've
need to
got
do
some
that
stuff
and-
that I.
Maybe we should do it more than
That's
once.
Right,
So my
even
plan,
after we come through this.
my hope would be
All
that
together.
to kind of change the process of how we've done this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, looking back from what we've learned, but looking forward to the future on planning, we know that, you know, a lot of things have changed in Durham, a lot of different pressures are existing. So we're building something like this, and rather than the discussion, like it sometimes has been the passive, you get what you can get to what you can get to, and then we'll just move on. It's saying, these are priorities and not necessarily a priority of, well, we'll get to it at some point, saying, we would like these addressed. And so addressing them might be, we did number 1, we did number 2, and we're now presenting a plan on what we need to get number 3 done. George is communicating that, and we're just setting the expectation that we want these things worked on. So then, during the budget planning, that's where we're doing the ask, and that's where you're going to the town and saying, we're having all these needs, you are all vocalizing this is very important for you to get done. We do not have the resources to do it all right now. The only way we can do that is either kick the can down the road or acquire additional resources. And I think that this is the basis of that, rather than getting to the end of the year, kind of like what happened with the reassessment. We're just at the very end of the year at a budget committee meeting, someone said, we should fund the entire thing this year and do it. That wasn't really a process of inclusion of the boards and the committees. That was just someone saying, let's do it, and then saying, we budgeted for it, it's there now, you know, and I don't think that that's the way we wanna do things, you know, so. Anything else on Conservation Commission? So we've got Planning Board and Conservation, anything we wanna add to the back page of Select Board to-do list that we might need 2 pages for now? Nothing? Alright. Let's see, Planning Board. Historic District Commission, what are some priorities here for folks? Heather, do you want to start? Because I think we've been working down the line here.
Communication, okay, that
And
was
Jerry, if
very
you
well.
have any in here,
I do, I'm just
please,
letting you
please let us
folks, and then
know.
I'll pipe in when you're, because I do have some stuff
I've been
I
skipping
want to
stuff,
say.
sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so for me, I would say that amending the land use ordinance, which that also ends up falling on the planning board, but they'll do the work to get there. Sorry, it's me thinking out loud. The name change. Down at the bottom. I mean, Union Church is in the process, so I'm not gonna put that as a
Yeah.
priority, cause we're like in that already. I would really love to see but again, this is the kind of thing where like they were gonna have to ask for the budget to do the survey of the buildings, but I would love to see an inventory of the town. I would love to see an inventory.
So, I know you're thinking out loud, but that's the whole point of this process is like, I'd like to see this done. We know that the resources aren't there right now, but this is where we start building that demand and then finding the solutions. So, inventory of buildings, those are Heather's 3. Deb, do you have any? If you don't feel like
Yeah, no,
you have
I
any
don't
way,
really have
anything you
any
wanna
idea.
add, that's what A-okay as well. Josh?
It wasn't name change until after the last meeting, because now I'm totally getting it confused every time I think about it.
Yeah, I'm probably not helping, cause
No.
I'm just throwing in,
I thought I had it down, and now
I'm putting mine
but-
right there already.
but the land use ordinance, I think that they've already done, they're just waiting for, Jerry and George to sort of look at and go through. And the survey of buildings, I agree to get a plan going forward so that we can get a budget for that. Cause I think the other stuff, you know, the only other thing would be like communication to get out to this, you know, I think Lois mentioned that going to the school and those education things, which I think they love, at least she loves to do, I
So-
think from what she
Yeah.
said, so.
And so
but-
that's where I'm getting here is like, I think that everything that they have listed here are important things that they like to do, but this is where I think we're making that priority, so, Heather, you had something else?
So when we're talking about the land use amendments, I know that right now, like we talked about the permitting, right? Like if it's in the historic district, they have to sign off and the planning board has to sign off. And there was a little bit of discussion around the fact that when there is a historical property that's not in the historic district, that they are informed part of the process. Whether or not that has to become part of the land use ordinance, or if that because I mean, the process for when people go through the conditional use permit and that type of thing, right? We have their standards listed, like that process is part of that. And so, you know, I brought up the Parker Schoolhouse being torn down and the historic, what is it? District Commission. I usually get it right.
Sorry, everyone.
They weren't privy to any of that. And so when we're working on those amendments, I feel like that has to be a priority. That's a priority for me. I don't know where they put land use amendments 5.14 A12. I don't know if those things are gonna get covered with what it is that I'm saying, but as part of any type of process that goes before the planning board, if it has a historical component to it, I want them to have the option to weigh in.
Yeah, I think the communication piece there, I mean, I was surprised, I don't know why I was surprised, but, you know, Shiloh Chapel was on the pamphlet here, I'm part of that area, and I wasn't really connected with the fact that we may have to reach out to them on certain things, or, so, I think making sure the community understands what's covered under this umbrella and what it means to us.
Yeah. Jerry, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, with this, yeah, so, the land use amendments, so when you're dealing with the Historic District Commission and the code enforcement, it gets very confusing the way it is in the ordinance right now. So this needs to be looked at. Now, George looked at it a year or two ago, put together a report, and it's sitting there. I think you folks ought to have that and look at it. And the commission has also worked on ordinances, and I don't know how that meshes with what George did. So I think to kind of move this along, I think there needs to be a meeting with the board, with George and the commission to straighten this out, because this is messy.
So that
Could we
goes
have
out.
George meet with that group and then come here with what they believe is the right way to go
Yeah, I think it would be better if we did it,
together?
yeah, the report's all done. I mean, George has done a fair amount of work on this.
So that's good. That's
And
a
I think it's
priority
just
for
that- so
me because
This really needs to be
So that's
addressed.
the land use ordinance.
Yeah, so like,
I'll put a mark on that.
like George wants to repeal 12. If he repeals 12, it fixes 90% of the confusion.
so
Okay.
I think that this
Others
is
may not agree, so that's why we need to get together and really hash this out on what this is
Okay.
gonna look like.
so for me, name change and addressing that concern right there are the number one and number two. Name change, because both of these deal with confusion. And what I don't like is the way I think about it is our land use ordinance and our documents are our contract with the town. As, you know, elected officials, we're trying to see those rules followed and brought to fruition. And everyone in the community should be able to access that information and know exactly how a process is supposed to work. And if there's not clarity there, it makes things very frustrating and it makes communication very difficult. And it makes, you know, you bring questions of equity and proper process into place. And I think that a lot of our growing pains have been around things not meshing together super well. So for me, I think that these two are things that are my, like, these things have to happen this year. Knowing that they both would require a town vote, doing it at the same time, I'd like to think the name change wouldn't be a huge, long debate, but we never know. But I would like to really think that we address these two things. So that would be my number one and number two. And then, obviously, this doesn't mean that they don't get to participate in everything else that they're doing, but we already have something on the shelf, maybe blow the dust off that, get to a place where we all agree, and move forward, so. And then surveying the buildings is an important one too, so I think I would say this is number one. Well, this is number one, number two, and number three. Jerry, you're gonna have to do all my, you're gonna have to translate this for you.
Well,
Anything else on Historic District Commission? And as a,
I
Deb, you
just
and
have-
Jo-
Well, no, it's not a public session.
Deb, you and
I'll do that in
Josh
the board
mentioned
member
like all of
report.
us getting back together. I think that one thing that would be helpful is like the department heads give us monthly or bi-monthly updates. I think that updates from the boards and commissions, especially now that there's like priorities and goals set more frequently, even if it's just a written update or something like that would be great, because then we know in August, we're hitting a brick wall on this, as opposed to knowing in, December that they're hitting a brick wall on it. And so I think that two-way communication makes us feel like we're always kind of moving things along or identifying needs. And that's the big thing is if we're gonna have to find solutions, identifying the need and saying that need is based off of a goal, I think is really helpful, so.
George puts together a pretty good month.
Yeah.
About that stuff, so.
So so far we've covered the Conservation Commission, Historic District Commission, Planning Board, and then Solid Waste. I'll start first, because I haven't started first yet. I think just getting organized is important, for me, number one. Since they're in their infancy and they're really just starting, like, all of these things are pretty important. But I think getting organized, determining what the options are, and then the direction, short and long term, are the important things for me. Because right now, we just need to find out what's on the table, and like Curtis said, realistically, you can say, don't change anything, get rid of trash collection, collect differently, get a transfer station. Like, we just need to know what those are, and then evaluate those, in some ways determine a fiscal note associated with them, and figure out which way we want to move. So they just have a lot of legwork to do right now, and so I think that this is someone or a group we might want to check in with pretty frequently, even if it's just getting a written report from them as to what they're doing, because this is also really on a lot of people's minds too.
Yeah, and the thing with this, I think, is, time goes fast.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think in the email, they talked about maybe a monthly meeting, but they should really have a upfront workshop to really organize themselves pretty heavy duty, I think, upfront.
I think they
you could
met
do the-
yesterday.
They did meet
Oh, yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I wonder how it went.
Yeah,
There's a
The-
lot of people interested in this topic who won't be at the meetings or
Right.
anything like
Thi-
that.
this is one of those groups that almost like a monthly report from them, I think would be really important, because this could quickly become a very convoluted or a very big fiscal note, And so I think that constant communication from them, and also I just wanna buffer them a little bit, because they're gonna be a lot in the public eye.
Right.
And so I want folks to know, this is work that they're doing on behalf of the board,
I mean,
Don't
why
call
don't
Curtis
we,
with
why
every
don't
piece
we
of trash
give
you
them
find.
maybe, be a little closer with them, and give them a timeline to bring some sort of deliverable to us within
Mm-hmm.
3 months, let's say. We want an options graph of, what you thought about, what are the pros and cons of each idea, but give them enough time to put something together
Right.
that they can present.
Right.
Are we at that point? I mean, I feel like we're putting a burden on them,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get people to say, I don't wanna do this, if we start saying 3 months from now.
They're gathering a lot of information right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I gave them a bunch today. I gave them a contract, I gave him Eco-Main stuff, I've given them the last 5 years of the tonnage that we have. I mean, they're just they're data collecting right now.
Right, I mean, what I would like to see from them is, the organizing, which it sounds like they're doing, they're getting the information they need. The options, which is something that I think is gonna take time, they're gonna have to talk to people, and that might be where something like GPCOG can come in and say, here's what these other municipalities are doing, or even, hey, this municipality can partner with you to do something and you can both save some money. But it's stuff that I don't think realistically is going to happen quickly. I think they need to figure out what they're doing, which is what they did last night and the information you're providing them, and then they need to come up with options, and I think that's gonna take time, so, as much as this is a big issue, I don't wanna put pressure on them to get it done quickly, I want them to do it right. And I think that's gonna take time, and so for me, I envision most of this first year being, let's get the information, let's talk to people, let's gather the options. And then, you know, the end of the first year, beginning of the second year is, here are the short-term options that we can do to start saving money on the tonnage. Here are the longer-term options after this contract ends. So for the first year, for me, you know, yeah, I'd love it if they figured it all out, got it done, but I don't think that's realistic, and I don't wanna put that much pressure on them, because I think it's important, and there are a number of options for every different thing they're looking at.
And I think that, you know, while time flies, they do have some time, because we're, what, 5 years with the current contract? So they're really one of our longer looking boards, because they're trying to come up with a solution for 5 years from now.
Right.
And so knowing that that's gonna take time, maybe an important intermediate step would be coming up with recommendations for ways to reduce tonnage.
Right, that's what I was gonna say, is that, like, if I'm giving is it my turn?
Yeah, absolutely.
A priority, I would like to see before, like, the short term, and for the short term, for me, that means before the next town meeting, is a way to reduce tonnage, like like either the composting, if we're gonna do that, what does that look like that type of thing. And then long-term goals, like, I think there's a lot of things that they have on their list, but one of the things that I would just say is, like, if we were gonna entertain a transfer station, where in town would be a probable site for that? That's, I think that if they're considering
So-
that, like, it's kind of important to know if that's even something that could be
Yeah.
a viable option here.
What I'm hearing from the group is, and I agree with you, Josh, being really thorough here is important. It sounds like your recommendation, Josh, is getting them to really spend this year getting their ducks in a row, getting all the information they need, getting organized, getting structured as being a top priority. And then from Heather, what I'm hearing is the next priority would be, at the same time, also helping develop a strategy for tonnage reduction. And that's where that could include other committees. So does it sound like that is a reasonable top two?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I'm with you, Debbie, in terms of like, Deb, I'm with you in terms of like really liking to put some timelines up in terms of goals, because I think it helps keep us motivated. But to Josh's point too, I'm sure that like there's a million moving parts, and I don't want to scare anyone away from participating either. So I think that just coming up with this is a good strategy and good middle ground. So this will be. Any questions on anything so far?
What's the plan to communicate this to them?
My
To all the
goal,
boards.
and I'm open to anyone's feedback on how they want this to be done. My goal was to be for us to set our policy objectives, and then we can either send out an email to everyone, because I feel like we all talked about these things. We can either send out an email to each group and organization and say, this is what our policy objective is for this year, please focus on it, or we can have another meeting where everyone sits down and we share that. It's just, I know it's hard to get everyone together, but I want this to be communicated like in the next couple weeks. Like we either set our policy objective tonight or next meeting, but next meeting's already getting very busy.
I'm fine
And then
setting
we-
it tonight, I mean, I
and then
think
we
that's what we
communicate
just
that.
did. It's just
Yeah.
how does it get communicated, that's
Yeah,
what.
does anyone have any suggestions?
I don't know why it wouldn't just go in a letter from Jerry on behalf of the board saying, here are the board's priorities. Here's what they've prioritized for your board or committee. Feel free to reach out to me and the board if you have questions or need more guidance.
As long as that works for you, Jerry. 'cause
Yeah, I can make it work.
I know that we like to, when we think about the distribution, it's like the committees are kind of our staff, whereas the town employees are kind of your staff. So as long as you're comfortable communicating
Yeah.
to the committees and knowing that you can share that,
Right.
put any flack or feedback to us, you know.
Yep, yeah, I can send something out to them.
And so have we made our objectives clear to you tonight?
You
enough to
have,
communicate
I just
that?
wanna talk about them.
Yep.
A little bit when it comes to staff and that sort of thing. 'Cause I had a good conversation with George today. All right, so resource protection. That's really not a lot of heavy lifting there, because the ordinance is pretty much established. It's really a map change.
Yeah.
He's already kind of gotten an official map.
Oh, good. That's,
So that's not gonna take a lot of time, and probably should stay, George could probably handle that. Without the Conservation Commission getting involved, because it's done.
Yeah.
So once you remove the
Bless you.
Habitat +6, and George works on that, they're getting the information from the state, so it's really up
I
to
thought that was
you.
gonna be a light lift, but I didn't wanna assume,
Yeah,
so.
but what I think
Okay,
we,
wait, hold on, pause for 1 second, I just want, lifting the Habitat +6.
no, it's just not a lot of heavy lifting to get that done.
Right, but we're not lifting the Habitat +6, right? We're just,
When you remove that
Right.
turtle occurrence, that's the only place in town where the 6+ co-occurrence had an impact on resource protection. So by removing that turtle occurrence, it's functionally removing that +6 component. So it might still be listed in the ordinance as areas protected by +6, but there will functionally be no areas
Right.
in town that have +6 because that was the only area that had it. Does that? do you
it
follow
does,
that?
my only question about that is like, it's related, this is related specifically to the turtle, but the turtle's not the only thing. Right now, it's the only thing, right? But we're not gonna change the wording that the +6 is gonna go away,
No.
because if
No.
there's another
No.
thing that
No.
So what's
creates
just
a
what
+6
my understanding is
scenario.
what's happening is, so if something else pops up that creates a +6 scenario, adding anything to the resource protection map would take the land use ordinance vote anyways. Like if a new species of protection was found and it triggered that somewhere else, that would be a whole nother, it would have to go to town meeting anyways. It doesn't become automatic, because that was the big thing that we talked about at town meeting. This would just be saying that based off of surveys that happened earlier this year at the request of a landowner by the state of Maine, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, they've determined that that turtle that was originally thought to be there is unlikely a representative of a breeding population, and the state has decided with that new information to say that they no longer recommend protecting that area based off that new survey. That would then just say this map no longer has them on there, and by removing that, there's now that area is no longer protected by the +6 because it's only scoring 4 points. So
So
it
does
doesn't
that-
remove +6 as a resource protection designation, it's just saying that that area no longer meets that threshold, so it's being removed.
Okay, but we have to go to town meeting with that to vote, because
Yes.
it's a map change.
Yes.
But it's just not a lot of work to bring it to
Right,
town.
and are
'Cause
are those people's properties in resource protection until that change is voted on?
Yes.
Unless they go to the appeals board and
Yes.
get.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
got it, okay,
Okay.
I
So-
understand, thank you.
The other thing that you're gonna wanna consider, do you wanna change those maps and with buffers or without? So in other words, there are people's residents' houses that are in resource protection, so they can't add on. They can't put an addition on, they couldn't put
Well,
a
they
deck
can do a
on.
30% increase with, yeah.
So do we wanna put buffers around these houses?
My thought
So
process
that's
is,
something George would wanna know, cause that'll require a little bit more work,
yeah.
but that's one of the things.
My thought
that
process on that is that there already is a mechanism for affected landowners to appeal that if they want to. So I don't know if we need to direct that right now, or if, since the maps are being redone, it could be a good opportunity to
Well,
direct that.
that's just
So-
it, that's right, cause you'd
Yeah.
wanna show that on the map, the buffer around
Mm-hmm.
houses if that's what you wanna provide. So you have that to think about, I mean, you
Yeah.
don't need a decision right now, but,
Yeah, that's a good, that's a good
that's something to consider.
point. Yeah.
The battery energy storage stuff, that really probably should stay with the planning board. If someone fills out an application, the planning board's the one that's gonna go through the whole process. What the board will wanna do is we'll have to put on the agenda, soon is the fees. Cause right now, battery storage, conditional use permit is $225. So we need to talk about that. That needs to be on an agenda soon, cause that's,
Yeah.
We'll have to adjust the fees. Now that we can do it periodically, so. The agriculture, our understanding, George and I, is that they're working with the Maine Farm Land Trust to kind of help them develop. So I don't know if there's really much we're gonna do with that until they work with them
And would they then have to approach us and ask to be made into a committee or a
Yeah,
commission?
I
And
think
does that
so.
take a town vote?
I
No,
don't
it's,
think so, no.
no, but it would
You would
be-
appoint them, it's just that they
Right.
need their own bylaws and.
So
what-
it kind of sounds like what's happening right now is that, and we just know about this, that there are a group of individuals who are exploring an option to create an agriculture committee or commission or whatever, and that at some point they're probably going to come to us and ask for that creation. So really, until then, we should just let them know we're open to hearing anything that they have to say. We'll be supportive as we can, but we can't really direct a group of people who aren't any official entity.
Right.
Well,
Right now it's more
I think
of
it
a-
would just like in an advisory type of way, like say to them that this is what I'm afraid of. It's that if we don't create the committee and appoint and then drive that, right? That they've become completely established, they've already done all of their legwork, they come to us and it doesn't meet the criteria of the comp plan. Or they have, an agenda, and I'm not saying that there's any, like,
No
I'm
nefarious
just saying, yeah,
actions.
I'm just saying that I think that when they have very distinct, I don't wanna use agenda, right? That's not what I'm looking for.
Experiences and goals.
Right, like it's a very particular skill set that they're looking to, right, which is important. But I think that the creation of that and the rules around or the that type of thing needs to have more of like a checks and balance kind of thing where it's going to be balanced against what other viewpoints might be, right? So like the Historical District Commission has this whole, they're set out to protect the historical nature of things, but we also have to balance what restrictions we're putting on the other homeowners around that as we're doing that. And so I feel like if they come to us completely done and they're like, here's our package, this is what we want you to approve, and we go through that and it's like, this isn't really balanced.
I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I'm super concerned about, in this instance, them coming to us with a proposal to become something that's total polar opposite, because we know that they're working with the Maine Farmland Trust, which I know has helped other organizations like this pop up. We know that people involved have already been on other boards and committees in town and were part of the comprehensive planning process. So in this instance, I'm not super worried about that, but I think it would be maybe good for us to potentially reach out and ask them if they wanted to chat at a meeting or do a presentation on what they were working on, just so we can help, support them to make sure they're bringing forward a successful proposal.
I would just like to see them go through the comp plan and check the boxes in the comp plan that that's what they're doing, and then.
So the only thing we can do is ask, would you like
Right.
to come talk to us? Because they're not a board or commission, so
Well, the other option is to do what we did the solid waste committee, where we put out a call for
Yeah, no, I
members of the
understand.
community that want to be part of an agricultural committee,
Uh-huh.
and give them the same thing like we did with the solid
Yeah.
waste committee, where here's and it could even be the bylaws that they've already established that they provided us with.
Yeah,
Like,
I
Here's your
understand.
application.
Wasn't that the plan, or am I misremembering? They were working to put together bylaws, and then we had the discussion about how they'll have to fill out the application
Yeah.
and be appointed.
Right.
So I think we
Yeah.
would then approve, I don't know if we would approve the bylaws, but we would certainly be able to see them ahead of,
The only
us
difference here-
creating this committee.
Yeah, the only difference here is, instead of us as a board saying, we want to create this agricultural committee, like we said with the waste, some other members of the community just started that first, invited George to their meeting to have him answer some of their questions. And so it's just, I think that they're going through the exact same process as the agricultural, as the solid waste committee. It's just they're doing it on their own initiative, and then they're gonna come to us, as opposed to us saying, you're a committee, now go build the
Right,
model.
my issue with that is that it's happening behind closed doors and not in a public forum, and after they've already become established and come to us, now we're gonna call it a town committee. I would like to see it from the beginning being driven at the town
But
level.
to be fair,
They won't be established until you establish.
Right, and
That's
to-
what I'm
but-
saying.
Right.
but to be fair, any group of individuals can band together and create a process where they do something and then come speak with us and say, hey, we would like to be a committee based off of this, could you review this and give us approval? Like, I don't think we're in a position to tell people who aren't part of a board or committee who are exploring how to promote agriculture in the town, you have to come talk to us if you're gonna be asking questions about these sorts of things.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they're doing what they're doing and that's completely fine. But if the end result is going to be that it's going to be a town committee, I think that it should start at the town and right from the beginning be a public opportunity and also the opportunity for any residents that want to be part of that committee to have that opportunity right from the very beginning. We know that they've already started. I would just like to have it become a situation where right from the beginning, it's transparent and in full public view.
So, I get that, but we can't control whether a handful of people
Well,
wanna
we
be.
can. We can put out a thing just like we
So-
did for the solid waste committee to say we want to form an agricultural committee. Here are your
So
appointment options.
if you wanna make a motion for that, we could do that, but I'm just saying, since we already know that there are people involved, I'd be more apt to just wait and hear for their proposal and see, as opposed to right now, start another approach where we say, hey, we're putting out a call for proposals because we wanna create an agriculture committee. I mean, you can do that if you want, that's fine, but I just think that it's kind of one of those things where I understand where you're coming from, of like, you don't want it to seem like because if there's someone out there who says, I want to be part of an agriculture committee, and they call up someone who's working on it right now, and they say, no, we don't want you involved, that doesn't seem fair, whereas if we were the ones starting it, we could say, we're putting out a call for volunteers. I'm a little torn on it,
So, you're right, we'll start with the town, so they're gonna put together this proposal, right, and it's gonna come to the board, and the board's gonna be like, yeah, okay, we do this. And then that starts the whole application process, so.
Yeah, they don't get to be
Right,
all
so
members. If we approve their proposal, we can then say,
Okay,
okay, we're now putting out a call for volunteers who want to be part of an
A
agriculture committee. And then they're
See
still
the
gonna have to
clerk.
go through and create bylaws and still create the process and create all that and for our approval.
and then you get to pick the committee members, how many you want, 5, 7, I mean, I think before they had like 12, and we were like, whoa, wait, 12. I think it was mentioned like maybe 5,
Yeah.
so if they
I
fill
just
it,
like to do that earlier in the process than later, before they've got their whole thing going without any input or transparency or public opportunity for input, from the get-go. I would like to see that happen sooner rather than later.
I understand what you're saying, but this feels like it's a citizen-led initiative right now, as opposed to the board putting out a call for a committee. And so if you want to, we can put out a call for a committee while we know there's already a citizen-led initiative, and then hope that those are the same people who apply and go through the same process, or maybe it's a new group of people who apply. I just think that might, for lack of a better word, ruffle some feathers, knowing that there's some people who are already going about doing it, who have projected what seems to be a pretty open process and whatnot. So if you're more comfortable with that, we can certainly entertain that motion and discuss it more.
I think either way is reasonable for people to think that it would be good to do that up front. But I think because they already started, they have who, is part of it, I think we should just leave them go as is and, follow the lead. They'll
I
bring
mean,
it
we
and then we'll
ultimately
follow
will
up.
still have all the
yeah,
approval,
right,
still approve who joins it. And for all we know, if this group of people comes forward and makes a presentation to us and says, this is what we want to do, and we say, sure, let's build a committee, it might not even be the same people who has to be part of it, and then the people who do has to be part of it will then have the opportunity to still say, this is what I think our bylaws and stuff should be, and then we would approve, their mission and whatnot, but I just think that with them going through it right now so much that we're just waiting to hear what they have to say, or reaching out to say, could you come talk to us about what you're hoping to doing? Because we just want to make sure everyone who wants to be part of it has the opportunity, and make sure that you are, if we would suggest that you open your doors to anyone who wants to be involved. So I understand where you're coming from.
We've set the tone that things are gonna be open and transparent. And so I would like to see that continue, and I would like to see it be done where the meetings are recorded, the minutes are posted online, just to follow the same.
The challenge is right now, though, they're not a committee, so we can't record them.
Yeah,
It's
there's
just
no
a group,
guidance,
it's
right.
just
So
a
I-
group of people
I
who
just
care about
feel like
agriculture getting
it's fine.
together.
We can move on. Say what you wanna say, and I'm gonna be done.
So I agree, shame on us for not doing this before,
Yeah,
but we didn't, and I don't know that, well, I do know, I could not articulate what the goal of this committee is. I could not do that. If you could do that and come with a presentation, this is what the goal should be, this is what the comprehensive plan says is needed, then I would say, yes, we should start that conversation, and we can take some guidance from them with what they've come up with and what they've done. But for me, I wouldn't be comfortable doing that now.
No, I wouldn't either.
And so, I agree. I think it would be nice, but it's not, and I think they understood, and as I understood it, they're coming to us, or will be coming to us with a plan. We'll be saying yes or no, and then eventually, I'm assuming we'll say yes to something, and then we'll be putting a call out for nominations, and then we'll be appointing people. And so I think at that point, we are giving them the guidance, and that's when it becomes open. I think they're doing some of the legwork for us, so I don't have a huge concern about that openness at this point.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, if you can come in and create that for me, I wouldn't be opposed, because I do think that,
I would just like to
some of
see it
that- some
done
of that
sooner rather
discussion.
than later, because as we're having these conversations, these other people also want their input, right? We
Right.
want them to give input on the solar part too. We want them to give input on the solid waste committee. We want them to give input on where important agricultural resource land is, that we don't wanna put battery storage things there. So as we're going through this list of these priorities that we're assigning to people, that's why I think it's part of the comp plan for an ag committee to exist. And so for those reasons, I would just like to see them, and I know we can't tell,
so I think to strike a balance with what you're saying here, because I 100% agree with you, maybe the best thing to do is for us to just reach out to whomever is heading that up and say, we'd like you to come to our meeting because we want to officially put out a call for this to be developed.
And we want
we want your
input,
guidance, much like we did with solid waste committee. We said, we don't know what the issue is, but we need to talk about solid waste. Does anyone want to be a part of a committee and then build it? Right now, we just know that there's a citizen-led initiative to say, we want to build the frame of a committee, propose it, get it approved, and then staff it. So maybe we can just say, we really want to support this being started in line with our 2018 comprehensive plan. We know you are all the citizens leading this initiative. Can you come in and can we get the ball rolling officially to make sure that it's elevated to the public view? Does that seem like a reasonable balance?
Yes, and that they have input in these things that we're putting as policy priorities. And so, not for the May meeting, but for the June meeting, could you ask them to come in? Is that,
Sure,
I
sure.
think
everyone
that-
agree with that?
I'll
Let's
do
put
whatever
the
you ask
board
me to
member
do.
report, you should put the board member report.
I will
I think
say
it's a good idea, though.
they themselves may not know what that looks like, and that's why they're working with the Maine Farm Land Trust to help with that. So, yes, I will reach out, and maybe with them.
In the meantime, I'll go through the comp plan.
Yeah.
And I'll report to the board what the comp plan specifically says about what the agricultural boxes are that need to be checked.
It
And I
may move along, if they know we're talking about these things, hopefully that'll be an incentive for them to get moving.
And I think that was a tense conversation, but I think we just struck a pretty good balance.
Yeah.
I think that what we're saying is we should have, as a select board, from sometime from 2019 to now, should have said, let's find our way to get this comprehensive plan moving and get this committee. We now know that there's a group of citizens who have led that initiative on their own, so we're just inviting them into the fray of municipal government where they can volunteer more officially.
And I'm just bringing this up because of George's workload, right? So he's happy that they're working with the mainland, so he can kind of like just step aside for a little bit, because this is why I'm talking, just to let you know where we are with staff, okay? So then if we work on with the Durham Historic District Commission and work on 12 and 5.1, George will be a part of that, right? And then open space, if they get that grant, he'll just sort of want to know and be kind of a liaison and just sort of help them where they need it. And of course, he's going to be the liaison to codification. And GP cog for the community facility, they're coming to the next meeting on the 28th to give you all kind of a synopsis of what that looks like, what that means. So George is kind of the liaison there too, working with GP cog, so.
Can you explain what that last thing was? You said community, what are you talking about?
The GP cog, community facilities.
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah.
So, Matt Panfill, he lives here in Durham, he works for GP cog, he'll be coming on the 28th to talk about what that looks like, what that's gonna entail. So, given all that, with the resource protection, with or without buffers, the battery storage, as long as agriculture's working with Maine Land Trust and not with George too much, with the Historic District Commission and working that out, codification, working a little bit with the open space, not a whole lot, and he's got
Well, I was just
24
gonna
hours a
say,
week,
Georgetown's pretty tapped right there
he's
between
tapped right there with that.
GP cog, the codification, resource protection, involvement in the battery storage. If the ag committee needs his bandwidth at all, and then not to mention the standard duties of applications and stuff like that. So it sounds like we might have more hours of work for George than George has hours to give weekly with this workload. And that's the whole point of this exercise, is to highlight that. So
Right.
if we do need to figure out ways to push things, get resources, or put things on a temporary hold, I think this is the time to kind of have that discussion.
He thinks he can, he told me this afternoon, for him, he thinks this is doable.
Including the battery storage?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because he's the one fielding those questions right now.
So he thinks that he can handle the land use ordinance changes, the codification, his normal workload, and help craft the battery storage?
Yes, because with working with the Durham Historic District Commission, he's already done the work. It's just, what directions does the board want to go? And looking at what the commission has done and put together for
So-
an ordinance as well, so.
Can we build a little timeline here then? Because from what you're saying, knowing that the work for resource protection is a top priority, and that the work is done, we just need to get it all written up, and then it would have to be voted on at the April town meeting. We know 85 to 90% of that work is done, but what might drive that discussion into more work is if we as a board decide, while we're redoing the map, take a select group of the properties that are essentially gonna be grandfathered and put a buffer around those.
Right.
That is something I feel like we need to determine sooner than later. Is that something that we can maybe have George come to us in either the late June or first July meeting
Yes,
to say, hey, this is the stuff that is just a check of the box that we've already got from the state. How do you want me to proceed? Just knowing that no matter what we decide, none of that changes for the individual landowner till the April town meeting in 2025 and it gets voted on,
so, late June or July.
Yeah, and then what do we think about the historic district land use stuff? Same boat, that's already written up.
Yep.
There just needs to be some direction from us, and I don't want this to turn into, come December, we're finally getting back to it, and now there's direction from us coming, and it's
Right.
a scramble.
I'd like to see what both the commission and George have written to compare the two,
Right.
and then go from there.
What do we think about a timeline though, like the first or second June meeting, or do we wanna push that to the July meeting? I'm just trying to build a little timeline for
Yeah,
us.
I think July,
We should get the information and then talk to George when he's here, so he only has to come once, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's my thought, is if we're gonna have the discussion about the resource protection and the historic district, since those both deal with land use ordinance changes, being useful, smart around utilizing George's time, having him give those
To
both
both.
at one meeting.
Yep.
I just wanna make sure he has enough time to prepare, so whether that's the first June meeting or the second June meeting, I think would probably be a little bit driven by George's schedule.
Because I think Lois will probably want to be here to discuss
Yeah,
that at the same
100%,
time.
yeah.
Okay, yep. Yeah, so late June, July.
Is it, I can't read the room right now, does everyone like this plan so far? If you have feedback, let me know.
I'm
I just think, I think we're in the minutia of things, and it's 8:30 already, we're on item 2 of our agenda, and there's been a lot of time explaining things unnecessarily. I think it's taking a long time, and that's my concern right now, is that these meetings are going to start taking forever.
Well, that's why I'm
And I
trying to
think
plan
we
out a
need to-
schedule to
I think,
spread it out.
I think we need to do our work and not explain it for everybody at home. If they have questions, they need to reach out, is what I'm getting at, because it's getting, I mean, these meetings if they keep going like this, you know, I think the proposed bylaws, don't they have a time limit of like 9 PM? We're not gonna get through half of our agenda.
Yeah, I
In the
understand
future.
that, to be fair, most
So
of the new
that's-
business, I think, will be a
That's my
30-second vote.
concern, that's my concern right now, is that
Yeah,
we're spending a lot of time explaining and rehashing things, and we just need to start moving forward.
okay. So, it sounds like we've got some scheduled items for June.
Yep.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add on these goals and objectives, Jerry?
No, I think I'm all set.
Mm-hmm. All right, just wanna make sure we have
Yeah.
that figured out, so we can get people heading the right way. Alrighty. Anything else for 24 work priorities that we wanna discuss?
I would just like to put on the calendar, we said boards and committees, I would like to do our board, so we did the other boards, but we had a whole page or two of stuff for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't wanna have that conversation tonight, but I would like to put that like very soon, because I think we also need to know what we're
Yeah,
gonna work on.
I think we have a
as
very
board.
busy schedule next meeting. If what we just recommended for George, we do the second meeting of June, maybe we can have that discussion of what we need to do for ourselves the first meeting in June, so we can just figure out what we need to do in terms of developing a schedule. Cause I agree with you, Josh, I don't want every meeting to go to 8:30, I just think that we need to do a little heavy lift at the front end here and get hopefully into smooth sailing, especially during the summertime, when folks wanna be outside and doing fun stuff. Alright, anything else from you, Jerry, on this list?
No, I'm all set, I'm good. Thank
And I
you.
think one thing that might be helpful is maybe you and I can just meet to sketch out a schedule.
Yeah.
So, and then we can kind of have that maybe submitted to all of you next meeting of what our proposed next few meetings might have for
Yeah.
topics, so. All right, with nothing else there on B, let's move into adoption of select board meeting minutes. We've talked about this a lot, it's been through several iterations. Deb, thanks for catching a couple spelling errors today too, that's always important. I spoke with Joe Tom, you all saw the email he sent to us saying that he's supportive of these bylaws. I would entertain a motion to approve and adopt the bylaws as written.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, any opposition? Seeing none? I'll beat you to it, Heather. I think these should be posted on the website, on our page, so people can see it.
I agree.
Alright, the law enforcement question. Jerry, did you have an update at all for that?
I put that on for Heather,
Mhm.
to talk about, remember you wanted it on the agenda because of the grant? Wanted to talk about it.
Oh, boy, I can't even remember that conversation now. Hold on. Okay, Jerry sent us an email that had a grant that that had as a deadline of June 12th, I think. And it was to fund, it was 75%, and then the town would have been responsible to pick up 25% of the grant. And we're not in a position to be able to do that, right, because that has to be established at town meeting, but Jerry said that that's a grant that has been historically given annually.
And so I asked to have that put on the agenda because I think this is one of the things that we had on our big list of things that we want, right? But a 75% grant for the startup is a huge,
Is that a full grant proposal or a pre-proposal?
3 years.
No, I mean the June 12th deadline, is that a full proposal?
Yeah, that's a federal grant, that's.
Because that's a big lift between now and then.
right,
that's
no,
what
no,
I'm
no,
saying.
and so
Never
that's what
do
Jerry
it.
and I said, is that like, you can't,
Yeah.
we can't even apply for the grant because the town hasn't approved that they
Yeah.
they want us
Right.
to.
But this will be
enact.
back open again next year is what
Yeah,
you're saying. And this
exactly.
might be planning for,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Next
It's through the
year.
Department of Justice, and they awarded some in 23, and they're gonna award some in 24. I just think what this does is, it should help us get moving on more discussion, so
And
next
get
year.
organized. If we're
yeah,
trying to
get-
tailor a
Right.
discussion around, and we have this grant opportunity that says 75% for 3 years, as sort of a template of how we get from here to there.
Right.
So that's why I asked Jerry to put it on there, is because while I don't foresee any situation where we could be, I mean, right, because the town
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah, yeah,
approved
no,
yet.
there's no way
I
to do
think
that
that we
this
need to
year.
look at the grant, and then we need to talk about a way to potentially get that before the voters at the
Uh-huh.
next town meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, and I
so,
think
I mean-
in talking about scheduling that meeting with the sheriff's office to see, I think Josh had talked about that, seeing what those costs are, so we're all aware
Can
of
we-
what that.
put that on a
what that
July
entails.
meeting, maybe first meeting in July, to invite the sheriff's department or
Well,
something for
I don't
discussions,
want,
or?
I don't think we should do that at a meeting, I think that needs to be a workshop, because I think we're gonna invite the sheriff, the chief deputy will come, I think, Chief McGee will come. I'd like to, invite, the chief from Freeport who lives in Durham, there are a number of officers who live in Durham. And I think that there should be an open invitation to them, because I think there are so many different options. Do we want 24/7 coverage? Do we want weekday during a certain time coverage? Do we want it to change each day, each week? This is a discussion that could take a long time, it could take multiple meetings. So I think it needs to be a workshop, and I think it needs to start sooner, because I think, there are different options, different ways to go forward, and there's an expense, which is going to be a shock to everybody. It was,
It's gonna be a big number.
it floored me, the expense that they gave me. And so we need to have that discussion and, you know, talk about realistically how this is going to happen, because I don't think it's something that's gonna happen next year.
And my understanding of most municipalities, their public safety is the most expensive department, or one of the top. Or
Public Works.
The public works.
But in terms of terms of set people's expectations, it's a big number.
Monmouth, who's the town manager, was here,
Yeah.
they're the same size town we are, they have a full, police department. When I looked at their budget the other day, it's about 450, 500,000 a year.
Which would be, for us, the biggest.
Startup would be more, but once you get established, you
Yeah.
have that.
So,
Budget.
real, before you jump in, Heather, Josh, do you wanna frame out a rough idea of what you think something like this should look? You have the most experience with this, just like who you think should be invited, when you think we should meet, how you think we should meet, and just let us know, and we can pencil something in.
Well, I don't have any experience.
Well, no,
But-
you
but
have
I
more
think-
experience with
I
dealing
think-
with law enforcement. in this-
I think that we need to have a workshop when we need to invite, people. We need to invite I spoke about this with the chief deputy. He said he would come, he said the sheriff would be here because they'd both be interested in having this discussion. I know they had a similar discussion years ago with Poland, and Poland had the same reaction, they voted for it, and they've never been happier. I think we need to invite, Chief McGee, Nate from Freeport, some other people, just get their insight, and what they think is best, because there are different options. And then I think we need to have, some conversations with the community. This
Yeah.
is what it's gonna look like, this is the impact on taxes, this is the impact on safety. Is it worth taxes going up to have this public safety? Here are the drawbacks, here are things. So to me, this is a long conversation over multiple days that should start before July.
Okay, Heather, I wanna hear what you have to say, and then I'm gonna propose the workshop date, so.
Josh, when you said that you don't think that this is something that we could do by next year, what I would like to see happen, I'm not saying that we necessarily pose the question in form of like budgeting for it for next year, if that's not realistic, but I do think we need to put the question out to the voters to know that they're going to approve it, or that they want us to do it, and we might not be able to budget for it within that year, but at least we now have town approval to start working to make it happen, and then maybe the
Yeah.
next year after that, we go to the town. So I would like to see this question on the
Yeah.
warrant
I
personally.
don't wanna
And I know
put-
that's a very preemptive statement before anybody gets here and gives us any data, but just based on what we know already, I would like to see the question go before the voters.
Well, at this
Because
point,
if
I
they
don't think
vote
we
no-
have, I don't think we even have a question for him, like, and so I don't want us to put the cart before the horse, so I do think we need to just meet with people and figure out what options are and I think we need to get a little bit more information, and if we do that in early June, that gives us several months to figure out if we're going to ask a question, what it would look like, or whether we do or not, so, Josh?
So I don't think it goes on the warrant. I think this is something where if we get our act together, we can pose a question and give Jessica extra work in November at the election and say, here's a local question. Because it's going to be a high turnout election, we're gonna get more than we
That's a
get at
great
town
idea.
meeting. And we,
It's a great idea.
and
It's gonna be the
we
biggest
need
election
to,
of every 4 years.
we need to prepare for this. The town, the taxpayers need to be prepared for what this expense is gonna be and how it's gonna fluctuate. And, questions that I haven't asked include, there's staffing troubles at departments across the state. What's it gonna look like? If we lose somebody, are you gonna take somebody from Poland or somebody else on patrol and they're gonna come here, or are we just the short stick because they were
Yeah.
working for us? There's so many questions, it takes time. I think it's a question it's a local advisory question in November, which is the perfect time to do that.
I think
So I think that
that's-
what you're getting at, Josh, is we need to identify some immediate needs and then come up, if there's a fiscal note there or there's any sort of exploratory question, we can ask that in November. And just, cause like you said, I know a lot of times what we always hear is, we don't want our taxes to go up and we also want public safety, and that's not gonna happen. You're not gonna stabilize your taxes with no increase and get public safety. And like you said, we think it's hard to find EMTs. You look at some of the large municipalities who offer massive starting bonuses and can't get applicants. So there's a lot of detail here. What do you think about a workshop, Josh, and the rest of you, between our meeting of the 28th and the 11th of June, so a June 4th workshop? Assuming that we can get those people interested in attending. I agree with you, if you think this needs to be done outside of a normal meeting, if we wanna stick with the Tuesdays here, we can either do a June 4th or a June 18th workshop.
I'll just say very openly and honestly, that week is a very difficult week for me, and
That's
I don't
100%
have to
fine.
be part of this, I don't have to be part of it, I can definitely watch and get the information. That's senior week, and I know
Is that the 4th or the 18th week?
the 4th, the
Okay.
week of the 4th is, that whole week is booked every day with
Okay.
senior but I'm totally fine with you
No, I
guys
understand.
conducting that
No,
meeting
thi-
without me.
this is a conversation that I think it's important for all five of us to be
Yeah.
here, for Jared to be here. This is one where I would, for whoever's watching, I would say come in so you can listen and there are no issues. And then my proposal is gonna be that we then have a sort of more than a public comment session. We sort of have another workshop with the public where they can come in and
Public
tell us,
hearing.
tell us what they're looking for,
Steering
tell us what they're thinking, where to go. I don't wanna set up a committee because this is a big budget item that I think we need to take
Yeah,
control of.
we're the committee for this, yeah. Yeah.
But it's going to take a lot more time than we have put in, than we've put in the past.
Or on anything.
And we need, if we're gonna do this, we need to do it right. And we need to do what's best for this community and,
What about another night of
so-
the last week of May? Like just a different night, like have our regular meeting.
Maybe what right now, I will circulate I just wanna make sure this is above bar. If I circulate a doodle poll or a when to meet or something like that this week, just to figure out what people's availability is.
I think it also needs to
the
go to
end
the
of May.
people that we're intending to invite,
Yeah,
right? Like if there are
and
people
I'll
that
have,
are,
if you wanna choose a date tonight, I will email them when I get home or tomorrow
Yeah.
morning. I'm gonna see one or two of them tomorrow morning, so.
It sounds like you're passionate about this and you want us to get on this right away, and I think that you're for good reasons. So I agree. I think that it's one of those things that if we set up a time that we can all meet, I don't have my work schedule in front of me right now, so
What
I
about
can't.
a Saturday morning, is that like
I can't do
not-
that.
okay.
No. I think
It's
that
not gonna work for
it's
them.
not going to work for them
Okay,
either.
no, it's
Yeah.
totally fine, that's fine. It's just-
Do we want to set a meeting date tonight, or can we circulate a poll online to see what people's additional?
Do we know if there are any
Yes.
other meetings happening May 29th? Is there,
You check on the town page.
oh, Conservation Commission, at the Eureka Center, is that not cool to do it the same night?
I don't think that they have a line of people
Yeah.
outside their
Josh, do
meeting
you know
ready
if
to
that
go.
date works for you?
That's a rough week, but I can make it work.
Oh,
I'll make it work. If it works, let's get it done.
So,
Because I think starting this conversation now is,
I mean, I'm comfortable waiting until the week of June 16th through 22nd, but if folks aren't comfortable waiting that long, I do want folks to, if it's gonna be a rough week for you, that first week, I don't want this to be something that when we all show up, we're squeezing it in, we're burned out, our brains are kind of fried from a heavy work week. I want us to make sure we're all firing on the same cylinder here, so if there's a way to schedule that in a way that works best for folks, we can do it, and if there's not, we just do what we can do. So whatever works for folks, let me know.
let me just look, is it okay if I just
Yeah.
look really quickly, as long as it's not the night of the barbecue for the senior class, then I
Mhm.
could do that Tuesday. Let me just make sure that that's not what's happening that day. We can move on while I look if you want to. No, it is, sorry.
No, that's
Can
fine.
we just pick a different night that week?
let's do
Like-
the 29th.
The 29th? I could also do
The
Wednesday
29th
the
is fine.
5th.
29th is fine.
I could do Wednesday the 5th too.
29th of what?
May.
May or Wednesday, June 5th.
The 29th of May, I'll be on vacation.
Okay, June 5th?
June 5th works
June
for me.
5th.
Does that work for you, Josh?
I'll make it work, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to do the contacting of the individuals, Josh? You
I
want
could
to
do
go
that.
through?
Yeah.
Because I just want to defer to your judgment on this. I
Oh.
think that you did a good.
June 5th is planning board meeting here.
Oh,
That's right,
maybe
first
I don't
one.
want to move that.
Sorry. I could do the 6th.
Let's just,
That's fire department meeting here.
let's just do the week of the 18th.
Does the 18th work for folks?
Yep.
Tuesday, June 18th.
Mhm.
That's not one of our regular meetings.
No,
Can we start at, 5 or 5:30?
Yeah, we can do earlier if you prefer. I mean,
I think
we
it's
have
better 'cause
this
we're
great
getting-
schedule. I'm 100% fine with whatever we need to do to make it work for people. If there's times that are better, as long as that works for
Debbie,
you,
can you
Jerry.
get here
I'll
for
make it
5?
work.
So June
If I have
18th
to-
at 5 o'clock.
Maybe if I have to, I'll just call in sick to work. Just kidding.
I can't
Uh,
see that far ahead to see if there's anything else. Wait, yes I can.
On the website.
Mhm.
Next month.
And while they're looking, I do wanna say that, it's very common for boards to have, their regular meeting once a month and a workshop once a month, rather than having two regular business meetings twice a month. And there's a lot of communities that do that, have a lot of work to do, so just keep that in mind. I mean, it's very common.
There's nothing on the calendar, on the town calendar for June 18th, so June 18th at 5 o'clock. Okay?
Let me see. Let's just make sure I put that in. And if I run into, if I have to check my work schedule, I'll make sure I'm not traveling or anything, but I'll confirm that with you all ASAP. So, all right, anything else on the law enforcement discussion?
And we need to check with Joe.
Yeah, we'll email
Yep.
Joe. Good. Any more questions, things on law enforcement discussion? All right, seeing none, new business, we have, 2 votes to make here, just to authorize a switch to the website to a different, Jerry to switch the website to a different host, we already talked about that. Saves money, brings more control in-house, and win-win for everyone. And then the authorization to take pine trees in front of the office out. I would entertain a motion to approve both of them at the same time, if anyone wants to make that motion.
If we're allowed to approve both of them at the same time.
We can
so
approve them as a slate.
I second.
But we didn't have a motion.
Oh.
I
thought
did, I said
Oh, you
so
move?
moved.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Second. Any discussion on either one of these? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Not seeing none. Both of those are approved. Appointing GP cog delegates, May 30th is the GP cog meeting. We have 3 delegates currently. It's Heather, Joe, Tom, and myself. I plan on attending May 30th. The meeting's at 2:30. Is there anyone else who would, Tom said that he's currently a delegate, but he's fine with that being swapped up if someone else wants to take that spot as a delegate. I'm just thinking, Josh, is that something you wanted, being vice chair?
I can't go on the 30th.
Okay, so in that case, I can go represent us, but if anyone else wants to go, be listed as our official delegate, speak now.
Yeah, I need to
Forever
send them an
holding peace.
email on who the Durham,
Well, if I'm still the
Delegates.
alternate and Joe can't go or someone else doesn't go, I'll go.
I can go, Joe said he can go,
Okay.
so I'm gonna go.
And there,
I'm
are there
gonna-
only 2 people going?
I don't know, is Joe going?
Joe said
He said
that
he
he
was
could
gonna
go, I'm planning on going, so I think this is gonna be the Joes and Jerry.
Yep.
Okay.
And
If that
that's fine.
changes, I'm happy to go and I can.
So do we want to vote to retain Joe R and Joe T as the delegates with Heather as the alternate?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Perfect. All right, anything, Jerry, from manager report here?
No, I don't, I gave you one last week.
Perfect.
Nothing this week.
Are we skipping over the managing the question and answer?
Oh,
Is that-
sorry, my bad. The discussion, managing the question and answer with representatives from legal firms. Yeah, Jerry and I spoke about this. The challenge is, we want legal representation, but we also want to be able to ask questions. And with things like this, where it's kind of a one-time service that we pay for, and we're just asking questions and we're moving along. With the hiring new legal counsel, it almost feels like you're interviewing somebody to hire that you might have a relationship with for decades. So we were trying to just explore the options of, should that be done individually, one-on-one with each firm, or a representative from each firm in an executive session? Should it be done at the same time? We just weren't sure if it is commonplace to essentially be interviewing 2 people and asking them the questions in front of each other at the same time. So just open for feedback on that.
So I thought it was appropriate, although I haven't looked, to do even what we did tonight in executive session, so I was a little surprised we didn't do that, but my expectation was if we can do it in executive session, that's the way for us to do it. Although I have noticed, this room isn't overly private with the pass-through there, so we should have that
Yeah,
conversation.
so since we have
also.
24-hour coverage now, we could just ask that during our executive session, we keep the door closed and we keep the kitchen closed and people stay out of that, so we have a little bit more privacy, because they have their lodgings in that room, so we can do that. The question I was just wondering is, do we want to speak to the firms individually in executive session rather than at the same time? Because it just felt like that would be a weird thing to do them both at the same time to me.
Yes.
And
How do we
Yeah,
schedule
yeah,
that?
how do you logistically do that? Like, if you have 4 that you have to interview, do you schedule them at different times? How do we wanna
Well,
do
can
that?
we come a little early that day and say, I mean,
I can usually accommodate earlier on these days. I'm at the town office.
That's at our
usually
next meeting,
by 6 anyways.
is that right? That's
Yeah.
happening at our next meeting?
They were, in, excuse me, in the RFP, it said that they could show up on the 28th, but then I put on or upon request. So.
Have you gotten anything yet?
I haven't gotten anything back, but I've sent them out to 4 different firms right now that I've requested them. So it's just managing that. It's like, do we do 2 a night and do it for 2 nights? Do we do all 4 in one night? Do we have one come in at 5, one
Josh,
come in
do
at
you remember how they
5:45,
did the town
6?
manager? How that went? Do you remember how that went? Sorry, I'm rapid firing.
We did it all we did it back-to-back nights, I
Yeah,
think.
2 nights.
So part of this is determined by how many people respond to the RFP. I think that what we would just have, what I think is an appropriate way to do it is, once we figure out how many people respond, I think we should just plan that week on starting our meeting a little bit early, and then we can go into executive session and just set a time frame where this person shows up and we're just gonna give them 10 minutes, 20 minutes, we set the time, and once that time frame's up, we're done asking the questions, they leave, and then the next person kinda comes in, just like you would do for a job interview. We just set those time constraints for ourselves. And then we can always say we wanna have an additional follow-up if we're not comfortable with getting all the answers we need or anything, so. What are people's thoughts on that?
I think it's important to get it done and have
Yeah.
it, so I would like to do it quickly. It's, it's when you don't have representation is when something happens, so.
Yep. So do you want us to start our meeting on the 28th at 6? And then we can just schedule, are we allowed to do executive session at the beginning if we wanted to move that around?
Sure.
And so we can schedule them to get in here, immediately go into an executive session after we start a meeting, schedule folks to be here from,
Josh, that's
6.
the week that you said is a tough week for you, is that?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
no, it's just, every week is busy. That week is especially busy, but I don't think starting at 6, I mean, we have to remember these are professionals who are gonna have worked all day,
yeah, that's whatever you,
so,
Personal help.
but I would, it all depends. I think we should see how many people and then set it.
Right.
But I think,
And this is something that we can deal with through email, because this is an administrative function, correct? This isn't, we can have this scheduling
I think the answer is
conversation.
yes, but we should state how it's going to happen tonight. So if
Yeah.
we can schedule that saying, I think that we just want to walk in tonight, we're going to meet with them in executive session, we're gonna set 20 minutes aside for each person we want to discuss with, and we'll wait until we find out how many people respond to figure out if we need to start earlier, we can just set the time, because that's just an administrative thing. So from a FOA perspective, that's fine, because we're not talking any details. Does that sound?
Jerry, does
Yeah.
that work for you?
Yeah, so they're the proposals are due on the 23rd at 2.
Okay,
All right,
so
so we'll know by that time how many we'll have and how many we'll.
are people
wanna-
comfortable with 30 minutes per applicant or per respondent to ask questions?
Is the 27th Memorial Day? Yes. Okay. I think 30 minutes is, Josh, do you,
I think it's plenty of time.
Do you think
I
we
mean,
need less?
depending on who comes, I feel like I'm gonna know most of the
Right.
firms, so don't look at me for this because,
Well, no,
I think it's hard to determine until we know how many applicants there are,
Right.
right? If there were 4, then I might say, well, let's cut it down to 15 minutes. If there are 2, well, then I might say, okay, well, let's do 30 minutes. I really feel like it's gonna depend on how many applicants we get, whether or not it's gonna be longer or shorter. Maybe if there's 4, we wanna get a first impression of them out of the gate and then call 2 more back or something. But not for too long, because we don't have services after the 30th, so.
I just think we should set up a time frame that we want to meet with them by. Just like if we're doing a job application, if I'm hiring someone, I'm setting that up in
20
advance.
minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes I think would work, and then that way, 20 minutes with an executive session per
Applicant.
applicant, yeah.
so I think we should say, we're gonna start the meeting at 5 or 5:30, have them come in and for 20-minute blocks, say, we'll set up 5 of them, let them choose, and then we'll put the public notice on that we're starting with the executive session. The regular board meeting will start at X time, and even if we have to wait with nothing to do, we wait until that time. That way,
Perfect.
we're being fair to everybody.
I think procedurally, we just have to do our call to order, public comment, and then move into executive session, so.
Well, I don't think we have to do public comment first. We can make an amendment to the agenda and put, I mean,
We have to publicly start the meeting, we can't
Right.
start in executive session, yeah, so.
call the meeting to order and then go into executive session after the Pledge of Allegiance. And if we need to,
So
the two of you make the agenda, and so you can do it that way, or you can leave executive session at the end, and I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to put it.
So technically, in our bylaws that we just adopted, it's call to order, pledge of allegiance, followed by public comment, and then motions to agenda. So we would technically need to open up the meeting, and then,
They have posted before that the meeting is just an executive session. That has been done before, where they have held an executive session, and that was what the public notice was.
Right. Do you wanna do that? I mean,
if that, whatever we have to do procedurally to just be able to begin and respect these professionals' time and say, we're gonna start at 5:30, show up at 5:30 for the we're gonna interview people from 5:30 to 5:50, 5:55 to
I think we do a
6:15.
notice of public session, a notice of executive session, notice a meeting of executive session at 5:30 on the 28th, and then do our regular agenda as a separate thing, a completely separate thing, the way we always do it on the 28th, starting at 6:30.
okay.
That gives us an hour, and so if we get 4, that's 15 minutes a group, but.
Maybe the start time will be dependent on how many we get. And I can-
That's an
I can
administrative
kinda-
thing we can do
I
online.
can back.
I just wanna
can
make sure
back
that
into
the
it.
process is laid out here.
Yeah.
And so let's touch in on the 23rd after you hear from them. Just let me know how many people, without
'cause
even
I'll
knowing,
have
I don't
to-
even need to know who, just how many people.
Maybe if you're around on that Thursday, on the 23rd
Yeah.
at 2:00, we'll see what we have, and then we can schedule that.
Perfect, works for me.
And see how that
Yeah,
plays
We
out.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, cool. Everyone understand the process we're gonna follow?
Yep.
Works for me. Manager report, Jerry, you said you had
Yeah, I
nothing
got
new?
nothing right now. No.
Board member reports, the only thing I wanted to note is I just wanted to, publicly acknowledge the fire department for a great save on the barn fire last week. We hear a lot about mutual aid calls. We received 10 departments responding to that, including full-time departments. 50,000 gallons of water, a lot of staff time went into that, and it saved someone's house. No loss of life, no loss of pets, and I think they're back living in the house this week already. So just huge props to the fire department for that. And then the only other thing I wanted to add, it was Freeport High School sent us a letter thanking the town for their contribution to the scholarship fund. So I don't have anything else other than that.
I would just like to say thank you to our town staff, Jerry and Alan Plummer specifically, and the animal control officer, because we had a rabid fox that we needed to deal with this week, and they came and
Took care
really
of
helped out with that situation. I own a daycare, and this is a board member report, but it's actually about me. And it was very scary, and so I really appreciate how willing and how quickly they were able to get there and help out.
Perfect. Josh or Deb, you have anything?
Nope.
All right, motion to approve a consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All
sorry.
in favor? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none. Upcoming meetings, we have a select board meeting 5/28/24. We now have an additional 5:30 or 5 to 5-ish or 5:30 to 6:30 executive session that Jerry will note. And then we are gonna have a June 18th workshop as well here at the fire department. At what time did we say that was gonna be?
5.
5
At
o'clock.
5 p.m. to discuss legal.
The Tri-Town annual budget meeting
Oh,
is
yeah.
tomorrow night at 6:30
Okay.
Here?
at Freeport High School.
Oh,
Okay, and then tomorrow night is the Tri-Town annual budget meeting at Freeport High School at 6:30.
That's for the RSU five budget, the Tri-Town RSU
Yep.
five school budget, just to set it back.
Alrighty.
Bulky Waste Day is Saturday.
Yeah, that's a big note for anyone paying attention still. Bulky Waste Day is Saturday. Alright, seeing nothing else, I'll pass these. Our Conservation Commission meets at the Eureka Center. Planning Board meeting 6/5. Is there an executive session needed?
No.
No. And I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So, do I have a second?
Second.
Alright, any discussion? All in favor? Done. Alright, let me get these.
You guys did awesome.
We put the afterburner on there at the end.
No, Annalise did awesome.
She's watching because she forgot her homework.
Oh.